The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. Subspace follows predictable harmonics. Warp fields bend space-time according to precise mathematical equations. The Federation has mapped the quantum foam that underlies reality itself. But what happens when something tears through that foam, when three impossible beings fall through the cracks between worlds, carrying with them the physics of entirely different realities? The USS Enterprise-D was conducting a routine survey of subspace anomalies near the neutral zone when every sensor on the bridge screamed in unison. Not an alarm, a scream, the kind of data cascade that suggested reality itself was having a seizure. "Captain, I'm reading a quantum singularity collapse," Lieutenant Commander Data reported from Ops, his fingers moving across the console with android precision. "No, correction. Multiple singularities collapsing simultaneously into a single convergent point. The dimensional variance is..." He paused, which for Data meant something truly unprecedented was occurring. "Off all known scales." Captain Jean-Luc Picard rose from his command chair, his reflection caught in the view screen showing empty space. On screen, the stars twisted, not the elegant spiral of a wormhole or the predatory darkness of a black hole, but something that looked like reality was being torn apart by invisible hands. Fragments of different colored space bled through the rupture. Purple lightning that shouldn't exist in vacuum. Crystalline geometries that hurt to perceive. And through it all, three shapes tumbling end over end through the breach. "Life signs," Counselor Deanna Troy's voice held an edge of alarm. "3 humanoid readings, but the biosignatures are..." "Captain, they're not matching any known species in our database." "Distance?" Picard's command training took over. 40,000 kilometers in closing," Worf growled from tactical, his Klingon instincts already on alert. "They will intersect our position in 37 seconds. Shields up. Tractor beam, Mr. Worf. Secure those life forms before they're torn apart by the spatial distortions." The tractor beam lanced out, a lifeline of coherent gravitons that caught the 3 tumbling figures. Through the view screen, Picard caught glimpses of them. 2 in colorful suits that seemed absurdly theatrical, one inside what appeared to be a mechanical construct of some kind. The spatial rift behind them pulsed once, twice, then collapsed with a subspace shockwave that rattled the Enterprise's inertial dampeners. "Rift closed," Data confirmed. "However, I am detecting residual dimensional bleeding across 17 decks. The fabric of local space-time has been compromised. Transporter Room 3, lock onto those life signs and beam them directly to sickbay," Picard ordered. "Security team to sickbay immediately. Red alert." The red alert klaxons barely finished their first cycle before Dr. Beverly Crusher's voice crackled over the comm. "Picard to sickbay. Jean-Luc, you need to see this. Now." When Picard arrived in sickbay with Worf, Data, and Troy, he found 3 of the most unusual individuals he'd encountered in a career, spanning first contacts with dozens of species. A young woman in a white and black suit with a hood stood balanced on the biobed in a combat crouch, her body language screaming readiness despite the medical scanners. A younger girl, impossibly young, perhaps 14, sat inside a massive mechanical suit that shouldn't have fit through the sickbay doors, its anime-styled head swiveling to track everyone in the room. And leaning against the wall with studied casualness, a tall figure in a spiked denim vest and mask, covered in anarchist patches, strummed what appeared to be a homemade guitar, producing sounds without any visible amplification. "All right, so," the guitar player said, his British accent thick with working-class London tones. "Not exactly how I plan to spend my Tuesday, yeah? 1 minute I'm fighting the fascist President Osborne. Next minute reality's doing the worm, and I'm on the starship Bloody Enterprise." He played a discordant chord. "Dimension hopping, classic." "You know this vessel?" Picard asked carefully, his captain's instincts telling him these 3 were far more than they appeared. The hooded woman's stance relaxed slightly. "Everyone knows the Enterprise. She glanced at her companions. "We're from different Earths, but Star Trek exists in all of them. This is the TNG era, right? Captain Picard? The bald guy with impeccable moral authority?" "I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard, yes." He studied them with the same intensity he'd once applied to archaeology artifacts. "And you are?" "Spider-Gwen," the hooded woman said. "Gwen Stacy, Earth 65. The punk with the terrible fashion sense is Hobie Brown, Spider-Punk. And the adorable killing machine is Peni Parker. The girl's voice emerged from external speakers on the mech suit, cheerful despite their circumstances. Doctor and I are a team. We're from Earth, 1.512. And yes, before you ask, we're all spider people. Different dimensions, same radioactive spider origin story, mostly the same powers. Beverly moved her medical tricorder across Gwen, her expression shifting from concerned physician to fascinated scientist. Jean-Luc, their DNA, it's human, but there's something else woven into it at the molecular level. Arachnid genetic sequences that shouldn't be compatible with human physiology, but they've bonded at the chromosomal level. And their neural activity, she looked at Troy. Counselor, are you sensing what I'm sensing? Troy's eyes were wide. It's like they're constantly aware of everything around them. Not telepathy, but a form of precognition so refined it might as well be. And the emotions? She focused on Spider-Punk, who'd stopped playing. You're not as casual as you pretend. You're terrified you can't get home. Hobie's mask somehow conveyed a scowl. Oi, counselor, how about we don't psychoanalyze the dimensional refugee, yeah? How did you arrive here? Data asked, his curiosity clearly piqued. The dimensional breach you emerged from violated several principles of quantum mechanics. Penny's mech suit shifted, and a holographic display materialized above her cockpit. We were fighting Kingpin's dimensional collider on Earth, 1610. Different villain, same plan, punch holes in reality to grab people from other dimensions. We were trying to shut it down when a massive energy surge hit from outside. Something pulled us through, and we ended up here, wherever here is. Near the Romulan neutral zone, Picard said. And if you emerge from a dimensional rift in this location, that means the Romulans may have been conducting weapons testing that accidentally intersected with your dimensional collision. Gwen's spider sense tingled, or tried to. The sensation was muted, like hearing music underwater. That's not good, is it? No, Miss Stacy, Picard agreed grimly. It is not. The Romulans do not take kindly to strangers appearing in their territorial space, and they are exceptionally skilled at turning accidents into strategic advantages. Hobie strummed another chord, this one almost mournful. So what you're saying is we've landed in the middle of a Cold War between space empires, we're stuck here with no way home, and we're probably about to become the most wanted interdimensional incidents in the galaxy? He tilted his head. Brilliant. Just bloody brilliant. Actually, Data interjected, the Romulan Empire maintains an alliance of client states and conquered territories rather than an empire in the classical sense. Though your assessment of the political danger is accurate. However, I must note that your presence here violates approximately 17 different Federation regulations regarding dimensional travel, temporal mechanics, and quarantine protocols. The three spider people exchanged glances, a silent communication that spoke of shared trauma and hard-won trust. Captain Picard, Gwen said, straightening on the biobed, in our universes, we protect people. It's what we do. We didn't ask to come here, but now that we are, we need to know, are we prisoners or are we guests? Picard considered the question with the weight it deserved. 3 children, and they were children regardless of their powers, who'd been torn from their homes and dropped into a universe of political complexities they couldn't fully understand. But children who'd also introduced a dimensional instability that could threaten Federation space itself. You are guests for now, he said finally, under close observation as you represent unknown variables in a delicate political situation, but guests nonetheless. Welcome to the 24th century. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper. Outside the Enterprise, in the debris field left by the dimensional collapse, Romulan sensors were already recording every byte of data about the impossible breach. And in a region of space where thought and reality blurred together, an entity of limitless power felt 3 new threads appear in the tapestry of this galaxy. Threads that didn't belong, that came from somewhere else entirely. Q smiled. This was going to be entertaining. Diplomacy. The next 12 hours taught Picard that guest was perhaps too simple a word for what the spider people represented. They weren't quite refugees, weren't quite asylum seekers, and definitely weren't quite anything Starfleet had protocols for. In engineering, Geordi LaForge stood beneath SP-DR's massive frame with an expression caught between engineering euphoria and complete bewilderment. The mech suit had been transported to the largest cargo bay, where it now crouched like a mechanical spider, all angles and articulated limbs that shouldn't function according to any Federation design principle. "Okay, Penny, walk me through this one more time," Geordi said, his visor scanning the suit's power matrix. "Your reactor is using what you call a radioactive spider as a biological power core. And you interface with the suit through a psychic link?" Penny sat in the Doctor cockpit, her small frame dwarfed by the control systems around her. "Not exactly psychic. It's more like the spider that bit me and the spider that powers Doctor are genetically linked. We share a neural network. I think Doctor responds. It's symbiotic." "Fascinating," Data said from beside Geordi, having volunteered to assist with the technical analysis. "A hybrid biological-mechanical interface that bypasses traditional control systems entirely. The efficiency is remarkable, though I detect significant damage to the power distribution network. The dimensional transit was not kind to your systems." "Tell me about it," Penny muttered, running her hands across damaged panels. "Half my weapon systems are offline, and the VF-02 vertical maneuvering gear is completely shot. We weren't exactly built for interdimensional travel." Geordi moved to examine a cluster of scorched circuits. "If you give me the specifications, we might be able to adapt some of our EPS relays to replace the damaged components. Federation technology might not be as anime as your design aesthetic, but the underlying principles of power distribution should be compatible." "You'd help repair SP-R?" Penny's voice carried surprise and suspicion in equal measure. "Of course," Geordi said, as if the question itself was odd. "You're not a threat. You're just a kid who's a long way from home with a broken ship, suit, and Federation engineers don't leave people stranded if we can help it." Data tilted his head. "Though I must note that Commander LaForge's assessment of your threat level may be premature. According to Sickbay's analysis, your mech suit possesses offensive capabilities equivalent to a Type 7 shuttlecraft, and your enhanced strength alone could cause significant structural damage to this vessel. See, that's what I keep trying to tell people," Penny said. "Just because I'm 14 doesn't mean SP-R and I aren't dangerous. We fought Mysterio, Doc Ock variants, and things from other dimensions that would give your Borg nightmares." Geordi and Data exchanged glances. "You are familiar with the Borg?" Data asked. "Star Trek, remember? We know about the Borg, the Romulans, Q, all of it. Where I come from, this is fiction. Here," Penny gestured at the Enterprise around them. "Here it's real, and that's the part that's freaking me out. Because if the Borg are real, and they find out about dimensional travel, they would seek to assimilate the technology," Data completed. "Your concern is logical and troubling." Meanwhile, in the Enterprise's gymnasium, Gwen Stacy was discovering that enhanced strength and agility worked just fine across dimensional barriers. She moved through a training routine that would have killed a normal human. Backflips between parallel bars, wall running up sheer surfaces, gymnastic sequences that defied physics. Her spider sense kept misfiring, though, giving her split-second warnings that arrived just a fraction too late. Worf watched from the entrance, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "You fight like a Klingon." Gwen landed in a three-point crouch, breathing only slightly elevated. "I fight like someone who's been doing this since I was 15. There's a difference between fighting for honor and fighting to keep people alive." "There is no difference," Worf countered. "Honor requires protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Your acrobatic style is inefficient, but effective. How many enemies have you defeated?" Gwen considered the question. In her universe, she'd lost count. Villains of the week, multiversal threats, Norman Osborn variants, herself as the Lizard. Enough to know that every fight you walk away from is a victory, and every fight where nobody dies is a miracle. A practical philosophy. Worf stepped into the gymnasium proper. "But you are troubled. I can see it in your stance. You are waiting for an attack that has not come." "It's my spider sense," Gwen admitted, frustrated. "Back home, I could feel danger coming seconds before it happened. Here, it's like trying to hear through water. Everything's muted, delayed. Your subspace fields or warp engines or whatever are interfering with my precognition." Worf's expression shifted to something approaching respect. You possess a form of tactical precognition? That would make you a formidable warrior. But if it is compromised, you are vulnerable. Tell me something I don't know. Gwen shot a web line at the ceiling. The fluid had finally stabilized after 6 hours of Dr. Crusher and Geordi analyzing its molecular structure, and swung up to a perch 20 feet above the deck. At least my web shooters are working again. Your 24th century chemistry is compatible with my formula once you account for the dimensional variance. Dimensional variance, Worf repeated. You speak of traveling between realities as though it were routine. It's not routine. It's traumatic, Gwen said quietly. Every time you cross dimensions, you leave people behind. Friends, family, responsibilities. And you never know if you'll see them again. She looked down at Worf. Do you have family, Lieutenant? I have a son, Worf said. Alexander. He lives with his mother's parents on Earth. Then you understand. Every second I'm here is a second I'm not protecting my New York, my friends, my dad. Peter Parker, my universe's Peter, is dead. I'm Spider-Woman because he died. And now I'm here. And I can't help anyone I love. Worf was silent for a long moment. Then, in Klingon culture, we have a saying, Board a spear, jabludi, ria ka ku ne. Revenge is a dish best served cold. But there is a corollary, battle heg yin ni law tajich, honorable death or long life with a blade nearby. You carry your responsibility like a blade, Ms. Stacy. It defines you. Here, that blade has been taken away. So what do I do? You adapt, Worf said, or you perish. There is no third option. In the 10 Forward Lounge, Spider-Punk was discovering that Guinan was not someone easily fooled by punk rock bravado. The El Orient bartender set down a glass of something purple and mildly luminescent in front of Hobie, who'd removed his mask to reveal a tall black man with a wary expression and impressive hair. Synthahol, Guinan explained. All the taste, none of the consequences. Though something tells me you're used to consequences. Hobie took a sip, made a face. Tastes like rebellion without the bite. Figures. He glanced around 10 Forward at the crew members unwinding after their shifts. Humans, Vulcans, Abolian, and Andorian. Your Federation. It's all very utopian in it. No money, no poverty, everyone working together for the common good. You say that like it's a bad thing. I say that like it's suspicious, Hobie corrected, because where I come from, utopia always has a catch. President Osborne promised us a perfect society too, right before he turned it into a fascist police state. So forgive me if I'm not ready to sing Kumbaya with the space fleet that runs this operation. Guinan smiled, the expression carrying centuries of patience. Starfleet isn't perfect. We've made mistakes, violated our own principles, gone places we shouldn't have gone. But the Federation isn't built on lies. It's built on the idea that people can be better than they are. Yeah? And what about the people who don't fit? The ones who don't want to be better by somebody else's definition? Then they're free to leave, Guinan said simply. Or stay and argue. The Federation has room for disagreement. It has to. We're an alliance of hundreds of worlds with thousands of cultures. Unity doesn't mean uniformity. Hobie studied her with new interest. You're not Starfleet, are you? You just work on this ship. I'm a listener, Guinan said, and right now I'm listening to someone who's trying very hard to be angry instead of scared. Oi, I'm not... Hobie stopped, caught. All right, fine. Yeah, I'm scared. I got pulled out of my dimension, dropped in a universe where everything I know is fiction, and I can't web swing home because home's about 1 trillion quantum realities away. And the worst part? I can't fight this. Can't punch a dimensional barrier. Can't spray paint revolutionary slogans on the fabric of spacetime. I'm useless here. You're not useless, Guinan said. You're just used to fighting systems. Here, you're part of a different system. Maybe instead of tearing it down, you could see if it's worth defending. Before Hobie could respond, the ship-wide comm activated. All senior staff to the bridge. Repeat, all senior staff to the bridge. We have incoming Romulan vessels. Hobie was on his feet instantly, mask sliding back into place. And here comes the catch. The bridge of the Enterprise was controlled chaos when the Spider people arrived with the senior staff. Picard stood at the center of it all, calm as the eye of a storm, while tactical displays showed 2 Romulan warbirds decloaking at the edge of sensor range. Hail them, Mr. Worf! The view screen flickered, replacing the starfield with the bridge of a Romulan vessel. Commander Sela sat in the command chair, her half-human heritage evident in features that echoed a woman Picard had once known, in a timeline that should never have existed. Her expression held the cold calculation of Romulan military strategy, tempered with something more personal: curiosity. "Captain Picard," Sela said, her voice carrying across the void between ships. "How fortuitous to find you so close to the neutral zone. Conducting unauthorized scientific experiments, perhaps?" "Commander Sela," Picard kept his tone neutral, diplomatic. "We are on a routine survey mission, well within Federation space. If you have concerns about our presence, I'm certain our respective governments can address them through proper channels." "Oh, but this isn't about proper channels, Captain." Sela leaned forward. "Approximately 13 hours ago, our science vessels detected a massive dimensional rupture originating from coordinates precisely matching your current position. The energy signature was unlike anything in Romulan databases, or Klingon, or Federation, for that matter. We've been monitoring the phenomenon when it suddenly collapsed, leaving your ship at the epicenter." Her eyes narrowed. "What did you do?" Data glanced at Picard, a silent question. The captain gave the slightest shake of his head. Revealing the spider people to the Romulans would put them at immediate risk. "We detected the same anomaly," Picard said carefully. "Our science teams are still analyzing the data. If you'd like to share sensor readings, perhaps we could collaborate on understanding this phenomenon." Sela laughed, the sound devoid of humor. "Collaborate? How very Federation of you. But I think not. You see, Captain, Romulan sensors detected something else. 3 distinct biosignatures emerging from the rupture, immediately captured by your transporter systems. Biosignatures that don't match any known species in this quadrant." She smiled. "You're harboring something, Picard. Something that came through that dimensional tear. And under the terms of the Treaty of Algeron, any dimensional technology or weapons that could pose a threat to Romulan security falls under our jurisdiction for investigation." "That's a creative interpretation of the treaty," Picard said coolly. "Creative or not, I'm prepared to enforce it. Surrender the dimensional anomalies, or we'll assume you're developing weapons in violation of interstellar law." Worf's hand moved to the tactical console. "Captain, weapons lock. Both warbirds are charging disruptors." Gwen, standing with Penny and Hobie near the turbo lift, felt her spider sense finally flare clearly. Danger. Imminent. Unavoidable. "Captain, she's serious. Those ships are going to fire." Picard didn't turn from the view screen. "Miss Stacy, how could you possibly—" "Spider sense," Gwen said urgently. "I can feel threats before they happen. Your subspace fields dampen it, but when the danger's this big, this close, I can feel it." "She's already given the order." Sela's smile widened. "Ah, so one of our anomalies has sensory abilities. Fascinating. Captain, you have 60 seconds to transport those 3 individuals to my ship, or I will fire on your vessel and take them from your debris field. The Enterprise isn't some merchant vessel you can bully, Sela," Picard said, steel entering his voice. "We are a Federation starship, and these individuals are under our protection. If you fire, you'll be committing an act of war." "Then we'll call it an unfortunate border incident," Sela countered. 30 seconds. Hobie stepped forward, his guitar somehow materializing in his hands despite the tension. "Oi, Captain. Not to question your authority and all that, but I've got a deeply ingrained distrust of fascist military types making demands. How about we don't hand ourselves over to the space Nazis? Romulans aren't," Worf began, "strategic, militaristic government with an intelligence apparatus devoted to maintaining power through fear and surveillance?" Hobie interrupted. "Yeah, close enough for me." "He has a point," Troy said quietly. "Captain, I'm sensing absolute conviction from Sela. She will fire." Picard's mind raced through options, each one calculating the cost in lives, political fallout, and moral compromise. The Prime Directive said nothing about protecting dimensional refugees, but his oath to Starfleet, his oath to himself, was clear. No one under his command would be handed over like cargo. "Mr. Data, transmit full sensor logs of the dimensional rupture to the Romulan vessels," Picard ordered. "Show them everything we know about the phenomenon." Data's fingers flew across his console. "Transmitting now, Captain." "Captain," Worf's warning came too late. The Romulan warbirds opened fire. Disruptor bolts lanced across space. Emerald death hammering into the Enterprise's shields. The bridge shook, consoles sparking, the lights flickering as power rerouted to defensive systems. "Shields holding at 87%, Worf reported, his voice deadly calm. "Returning fire." The Enterprise's phaser arrays came alive, crimson beams tracking across the lead warbird's shields. Space became a light show of destructive energy, ships dancing their lethal ballet at velocities that would have torn apart anything not protected by structural integrity fields. "Evasive maneuvers? Pattern Delta 3, Picard commanded. "Target their weapons arrays only. I will not escalate this into full-scale combat if it can be avoided." Penny watched the tactical display with professional interest, her mind automatically calculating firing solutions and evasion patterns. "Captain, the second warbird is moving to flank you. They're trying to get a crossfire position." "She's right," Worf confirmed, surprised. "Second vessel coming about, bearing 270 Mark IV. "How?" Picard started to ask, but the ship shuddered again under another disruptor salvo. "I pilot a giant mech suit in dimension-hopping battles," Penny said matter-of-factly. "Tactical analysis is kind of my thing. If I were them, I'd be charging a plasma torpedo for your port nacelle right about now." "Plasma torpedo launch detected," Worf barked. "Impact in 9 seconds. Hard to port. Full impulse." Picard gripped his chair as the Enterprise heeled over, her massive frame responding with grace that defied her size. The plasma torpedo streaked past, close enough that its radiation wash momentarily overloaded the port shields. Gwen's spider sense was screaming now, clear and bright and terrible. She could feel the web of possible futures collapsing, each one darker than the last. "This is going to get people killed. Your ship, their ships, everyone." "I am open to alternative suggestions, Ms. Stacy," Picard said, his tone clipped as another disruptor blast hammered their shields. Gwen looked at Hobie and Penny. A conversation happened in that glance, the kind only people who'd fought together, bled together could have. They'd been in worse situations. They'd faced down interdimensional threats, multiversal tyrants, and their own personal demons. This was just another impossible problem that needed a third option. "Let us go out there," Gwen said. Every head on the bridge turned to her. "Absolutely not," Picard said immediately. "Captain, with respect, we're what they want," Gwen pressed, "and we're the only ones here who can operate in vacuum without life support. I can survive in space for about 2 minutes with my enhanced physiology. Penny's in a sealed mech suit. Hobie's got whatever anarchist magic lets him survive anything." "Oi, it's not magic, it's spite," Hobie corrected. "The point is," Gwen continued, "if we go out there and show them we're not weapons, that we're just people trying to get home, maybe we can de-escalate this before someone dies. Or they'll capture you the moment you're outside our shields," Worf said bluntly. "Then you better make sure your tractor beam's faster than their transporters," Penny said. "Look, Captain Picard, in every universe I've seen Star Trek, you're the guy who talks first and shoots last. You believe in communication, in finding the peaceful solution. So let us communicate. Let us show them we're not a threat." Picard studied the three of them, children playing at being heroes, or heroes trapped in children's bodies. The distinction mattered less than their courage, the willingness to put themselves at risk for a crew they barely knew. "Data, can we lower a section of shields long enough to transport them out without compromising the ship?" "Affirmative," Data said. "However, the window would be approximately 1.4 seconds. The Romulans would certainly detect the shield fluctuation." "Shields at 72%, Worf reported. "Another sustained barrage, and we'll start taking hull damage." Picard made his decision with the weight of command he'd carried for decades. "Transporter Room 2, stand by to beam our guests into open space. Vector 3, 1 Mark 6, distance 500 meters. Tactical, the instant they're clear, restore full shields." "Captain," Troy said, her empathic senses overwhelmed by the emotional currents on the bridge. "Are you certain about this?" "No, Counselor," Picard admitted, "but I'm certain that continuing this battle guarantees casualties. They're offering us a chance, slim as it is, to prevent that. It goes against every protective instinct I have, but it's also the most Starfleet thing I've heard all day." He looked at the spider people. "Don't make me regret this." Gwen pulled her hood up, her mask sliding into place. "We won't, promise." Hobie strummed a single, defiant chord. "No promises, but we'll try not to die, yeah?" Penny's SP, Chuckur, Doctor's suit stood at full height, towering even in the confined bridge space. SP, Doctor and I are ready. Let's show them what spider people can do. They moved to the turbo lift, but before the doors closed, Data called out, Ms. Parker, good luck. I find your human-machine symbiosis inspiring. Penny's voice carried a smile. Thanks, Data. You're pretty inspiring yourself. The turbo lift doors closed. On the view screen, the Romulan warbirds circled like predators, preparing for another strike. And in the space between ships, three heroes were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is choose hope over fear. The transporter beam released them into the void. Gwen had experienced a lot of impossible things, falling through dimensions, fighting her universe's version of herself as a lizard monster, dying and coming back. But materializing in the vacuum of space without a suit was a new kind of surreal. Her enhanced physiology kicked in immediately, her body compensating for the lack of atmosphere. She had maybe 90 seconds before hypoxia set in, less if she exerted herself. Hobie appeared beside her in a shimmer of gold light, somehow looking casual even as his body adjusted to hard vacuum. His punk aesthetic seemed almost appropriate here, rebellion against the basic requirements of survival itself. And then SP, Botch, Doctor materialized, Penny's mech suit a splash of color and anime angles against the black. The suit's external speakers crackled to life, transmitting on open frequencies. Okay, this is officially the weirdest thing I've done this week, and I fought a psychic octopus on Tuesday. The Enterprise hung above them, a gleaming symbol of Federation ideals and engineering excellence, her shields flickering with rainbow refractions as disruptor fire continued to hammer them. The two Romulan warbirds circled like sharks, predatory birds of prey, class vessels that carried enough firepower to crack a planet. And now, suspended in vacuum between hostile forces, three teenagers from other dimensions prepared to do something monumentally stupid. Gwen's spider sense pulsed, not danger, but attention. Every sensor on all three ships was locked onto them. On the Enterprise bridge, Sella's face reappeared on the view screen, her expression shifting from military calculation to genuine fascination. Cease fire, she commanded, her voice transmitted across Romulan channels. Both warbirds went silent, disruptors powering down but remaining charged. Captain Picard, your dimensional anomalies just transported themselves into open space. Either you're more desperate than I calculated, or they're more foolish. Commander, we're attempting to prevent unnecessary bloodshed, Picard said, watching the tactical display track the three figures floating between ships. Perhaps if you'd allow them to speak. Oh, I intend to listen, Sella interrupted, before I capture them. She leaned forward. Attention unidentified biological entities. This is Commander Sella of the Romulan Imperial Fleet. You are in violation of territorial space and represent an unacceptable threat to Romulan security. You will submit to immediate transport to our vessel for interrogation and study, or we will resume firing on the Enterprise until their shields fail and we can take you by force. Hobie's guitar somehow still functioned in vacuum. Whether through dimensional weirdness or sheer punk rock defiance, he wasn't sure. And he struck a chord that transmitted across all frequencies. Right, so, quick question. Has the fascist military threat ever worked on anyone with actual self-respect? Because where I come from, we've got a saying, no gods, no masters, no bloody space empires telling me what to do. Hobie, Gwen hissed over their shared comms. Her web shooters included short-range communicators. Maybe don't antagonize the people with the giant warships. Too late, Penny said, her sensors tracking weapon systems across both Romulan vessels. They're powering up again. We've got maybe 10 seconds before they decide talking's overrated. Gwen pushed off from nothing, her enhanced strength letting her propel herself through micro-adjustments of her body position. Floating toward the lead warbird, she spread her arms wide, a gesture of peace that probably looked absurd in her spider-themed costume. Commander Sella, we're not weapons. We're not a threat. We're just three kids who got pulled through dimensions by accident. Your weapon test, or whatever it was, intersected with a dimensional collider in our universes. The explosion pulled us through. We didn't choose to be here. A convenient story, Sella said, though Picard noticed her weapons hadn't fired. She was curious, which in a Romulan could be either an advantage or a trap. Yet you possess abilities that violate known biological principles. Enhanced strength, precognitive sensory capabilities, and She focused on SP, we are doctor, a hybrid machine that shouldn't function according to any rational design philosophy. You expect me to believe you're harmless, children? We expect you to believe we're people, Penny said, her voice carrying across open channels with a teenager's earnestness and an engineer's precision. Yeah, we've got powers. Yeah, we can fight. But we fight to protect people, not to conquer them. In our universes, we're heroes. We save lives. And right now, we're trying to save the lives of everyone on that Enterprise by stopping you from making a really bad decision. On the Enterprise bridge, Data tilted his head. Captain, I am detecting unusual empathic resonance in Miss Parker's transmissions. Her emotional sincerity is compelling. Even I find myself affected. As do I, Troy confirmed, tears suddenly in her eyes. She's not lying. None of them are. The fear, the desperation to go home, the absolute conviction that violence is wrong. It's overwhelming. Sella's expression flickered, just for a moment, with something that might have been doubt. You claim to be heroes, yet you associate with the Federation, an organization that hides behind noble principles while expanding its influence across the galaxy. The Romulan Empire has no illusions about what we are. We are conquerors, strategists, survivors, but at least we're honest about it. Hobie laughed, the sound bitter and knowing. Yeah, I've heard that one before. We're just being honest about the oppression, which makes it better somehow. Doesn't work on me, love. I've fought actual fascists. And you know what I learned? They all think they're the heroes of their own story. You dare, Sella began, but Gwen cut her off. Hobie, stop, please. Gwen floated closer to the warbird, close enough that she could see the faint shimmer of its shields. Commander, I get it. You don't trust us. You don't trust the Federation. You see a potential weapon or a potential threat, and your training says eliminate or capture it. But I'm asking you, one person to another, to see us as what we are. We're scared, we're lost, and we just want to go home. Sella studied her through the view screen, this strange masked figure floating in vacuum as if it were the most natural thing in the world. If I believed you, if I let you remain with the Federation, you could be studied, replicated. Your abilities could be weaponized. Within a decade, Starfleet could have an army of enhanced soldiers with precognitive abilities and strength beyond any known species. Could, Gwen agreed, but they won't, because that's not what the Federation does. They'll study us, sure. They'll try to understand us, but they won't weaponize us. It goes against everything they believe in. Such faith in noble principles, Sella said. What if you're wrong? Then we'll stop them ourselves, Hobie said flatly. We don't let anyone weaponize us. Not you, not them, not anyone. That's the point of being spider people. We choose our own path. And right now our path is de-escalating this situation before people die for no good reason. Picard watched the exchange, fascinated despite the tactical danger. 3 children, enhanced, powerful, but still children, were negotiating with one of the Romulan Empire's most cunning commanders. And somehow, impossibly, they were holding their own. Captain, Worf said quietly, I am detecting 3 more vessels approaching at high warp. Configuration, Klingon, bird of prey class. Picard's blood went cold. On screen, the view screen split, showing Sella on one side and 3 Klingon vessels dropping out of warp on the other. The lead ship hailed immediately, and the face that appeared was one Picard recognized, Captain Picard, a Klingon warrior he'd worked with during the brief alliance against the Borg. Captain Picard, Picard's voice boomed with Klingon enthusiasm. We detected unusual weapons fire and a dimensional anomaly in this sector. The High Council sent us to investigate. What is the nature of this conflict? Captain Picard, the situation is complex, Picard began. We detected enhanced life forms in open space, Picard interrupted, his eyes widening as his sensors fed him data. By Kales, what manner of warriors are these? They survive in vacuum, possess enhanced combat capabilities, and pilot a war machine unlike anything in our databases. Captain Picard, who are these magnificent beings? Sella's expression shifted to barely contain fury. The Klingons have no jurisdiction here. This is a Romulan matter. Any matter involving warriors of such prowess is a Klingon matter, Picard countered. I propose we all stand down and discuss this like civilized species. Unless the Romulans would prefer to face both the Federation and the Klingon Empire simultaneously? The Spider trio floated between all 5 ships now, Federation, Romulan, and Klingon vessels, forming a triangle around them, with themselves at the center. Gwen's spider sense was going haywire with overlapping threat signatures, but also something else: opportunity. The situation was insane, but it was also fluid. They had everyone's attention, which meant they had leverage. "Okay," Penny said over their private comms. "On a scale of 1 to we're completely screwed, where are we?" "Solidly at a 7, Gwen estimated. "We've got 3 different factions all interested in us for different reasons. The Federation wants to protect us, the Romulans want to study or weaponize us, and the Klingons think we're glorious warriors," Hobie finished, "which is almost worse because they'll want to fight us to test our mettle, or some rubbish like that." "SPDR's sensors are picking up energy signatures from all ships," Penny reported. "Everyone's armed, everyone's nervous, and one wrong move turns this into a 3-way battle with us in the middle." Gwen made a decision. She fired a web line, molecular bonding technology from her universe meeting 24th century materials science, and it stuck to the hull of the Enterprise. Then another to the Romulan warbird, and a third to the lead Klingon bird of prey. 3 lines, 3 ships, herself at the nexus. "Listen to me," she said, her voice transmitting across all channels. "I'm literally connecting all 3 of your ships right now. Physical bonds that represent what we're trying to do here. We're not choosing sides. We're not weapons for any of you to claim. We're just 3 people who need help getting home." She pulled on the web lines, enhanced strength against starship masses, completely symbolic but viscerally powerful. "So here's what's going to happen. You're all going to power down your weapons. You're going to talk instead of shoot, and you're going to help us figure out how to reverse the dimensional breach that brought us here. Because if you don't," her spider sense flared with genuine precognitive certainty, "something worse is coming. The dimensional walls are damaged. We felt it when we arrived. And if you're too busy fighting each other to notice, whatever comes through next might not be as friendly as 3 teenage heroes." Silence across all channels. Then Q appeared, materializing in the vacuum between ships in a flash of white light, wearing a Starfleet admiral's uniform with ridiculous amounts of braid. "Oh, I wouldn't worry about that, my dear spider child. What comes next is going to be absolutely delightful." Q's appearance in hard vacuum, completely unprotected and utterly unconcerned, sent shockwaves through all 3 fleets. On the Enterprise, Picard's expression cycled through recognition, resignation, and something approaching existential exhaustion. "Q," he said, his voice carrying the weight of someone who'd dealt with omnipotent beings too many times. "Of course it's you." Q flourished a bow in vacuum, somehow making the gesture seem both mocking and elegant. "Jean-Luc, how delightful to see you again, and in such fascinating company." He floated toward the spider trio, examining them with the curiosity of a collector discovering new specimens. "Oh, this is marvelous. 3 little spiders from other universes, caught in a web, pun absolutely intended, of galactic politics. The Continuum has been watching your arrival with considerable interest." Gwen's spider sense was screaming now, but not with danger, with wrongness. Q didn't register as a threat because he was beyond threat, beyond danger, beyond the normal parameters her precognition could process. He was a blind spot in causality itself. "Who the hell are you?" Hobie demanded, though his voice carried an edge of concern he usually reserved for genuinely dangerous situations. "I," Q said, spreading his arms wide, "am Q, omnipotent, omniscient, and far more interesting than any of these limited beings with their ships and weapons and adorable attempts at galactic significance." He snapped his fingers, and suddenly all 5 ships were frozen, weapon systems offline, engines dead, even life support suspended in a moment of stop time. Only the crew remained conscious, trapped in their vessels like exhibits in a museum. "Q, release my ship immediately." Picard's voice carried across the comm, authority clashing against impossible power. "Oh, don't be tiresome, Jean-Luc. I'm not here to play with your crew today. I'm here for them." Q gestured at the spider people. "Do you 3 have any idea what you've done? You haven't just crossed dimensional barriers. You've torn them, ripped holes in the membrane between realities. And the universe, much like a spider's web, is quite sensitive to damage." Penny's sensors were going haywire inside SP Chateaudar's cockpit. "My readings show you as nothing. You don't exist. You shouldn't be possible." "Oh, child, I'm entirely impossible. Q said cheerfully. That's rather the point of being Q. Now let me explain something to you, three-dimensional refugees. When you crossed over, you didn't come alone. You brought something with you, something hungry, something that's been waiting between dimensions for exactly this kind of opportunity. He snapped his fingers again, and the space around them rippled. Through the distortion, Gwen could see it, cracks in reality itself, spreading like fractures in glass. And through those cracks, something was watching. Multiple somethings, shapes that hurt to perceive, geometries that violated physics, colors that shouldn't exist. Interdimensional parasites, Q said, his tone shifting from playful to genuinely serious. They feed on the boundaries between realities. Your arrival weakened those boundaries, and now they're coming through. In approximately, he checked a pocket watch that appeared in his hand. 47 minutes, they'll breach completely. And when they do, they'll start consuming this reality from the edges inward. You're lying, Hobie said, but his conviction wavered. I'm Q countered. I don't need to lie. I can simply change reality to suit my whims. But where's the fun in that? No, this situation is real and it's your fault. Well, partly your fault. Mostly the Romulans' fault for building a quantum singularity weapon that punched holes in dimensional barriers. But you three came through those holes, and you're the anchors keeping them open. Gwen felt her stomach drop, or would have, if she'd had a stomach in the traditional sense in vacuum. What do you mean, anchors? Q floated closer, examining her like a professor studying a particularly interesting specimen. You don't belong here. Your molecular structure, your dimensional frequency, your very existence is out of phase with this reality. As long as you're here, the barriers stay weak, the cracks spread, and those things, he pointed at the fractures in space, get hungrier. On the Enterprise, Data was frantically analyzing sensor data. Captain, I am detecting the anomalies Q described. Subspace fractures spreading at an exponential rate. If his timeline is accurate, in 47 minutes, the structural integrity of local spacetime will collapse entirely. Sella's voice cut across all channels, her military composure cracking slightly. Q, the entity of limitless power who tests lesser beings for amusement. If this threat is real, you could stop it with a thought. I could, Q agreed, but that would be cheating. The continuum has rules, you know. We don't simply solve every problem that arises. Where's the growth in that? Where's the lesson? He turned back to the spider people. No, this is your test. 3 little heroes from universes where power comes with responsibility. So here's your responsibility. Save this reality or watch it unravel. How? Penny demanded. If we're the anchors, if we're keeping the dimensional barriers weak, what are we supposed to do? Q smiled. Oh, I'm so glad you asked. You have 3 options. First, you could leave, go back through the dimensional barriers, close the holes behind you. Of course, that would require generating enough energy to tear reality open again, which might just accelerate the parasite's breakthrough. Risky. Second option, Gwen asked, you could let the Federation, Romulans, and Klingons study you, dissect your dimensional frequencies, understand what makes you different, and use that knowledge to seal the barriers. Of course, such study would be invasive, painful, and there's no guarantee you'd survive the process, but at least this reality would be saved. Hobie's hands clenched. And the third option? Q's expression shifted to something almost respectful. You could fight. The parasites will come through whether you want them to or not. But you 3 are dimensional anomalies yourselves. You exist between states. That makes you the only beings in this reality who might be able to harm them. So you could stand your ground, face down creatures that eat realities for breakfast, and hope that teenage heroism trumps cosmic horror. Those are terrible options, Gwen said. Yes, Q agreed. Welcome to the universe, where most choices are terrible, and you pick the least awful one. Isn't free will wonderful? He snapped his fingers, and time resumed across all 5 ships. Weapon systems came back online. Life support stabilized. Engines hummed with renewed power. Captain Cumpec's voice boomed across the comm. By Kahless, the honorless trickster Q, I should have known you'd be involved in this madness. Cumpec, you delightful warrior, Q said cheerfully. Still compensating for your species' aggressive tendencies with loud shouting and honor codes? Charming. Picard's voice cut through the chaos with command authority. Q, if what you're saying is true, it is. Then we need to coordinate our response immediately. Commander Sella, Captain Picard, I propose a temporary truce. If this reality is truly at risk, our political differences become meaningless. Sella's image on the view screen showed a woman calculating odds faster than any computer. A truce. To fight creatures we can't see that may or may not exist, on the word of an entity known for testing species through elaborate deceptions. Captain Picard, your faith in Q's honesty is touching and foolish. I don't trust Q, Picard said flatly, but I trust my sensors. Data, transmit the subspace fracture readings to all vessels. Data complied, and for several seconds the crews of all ships studied the same terrifying data. The fractures were real, they were spreading, and in 46 minutes, something was coming through. Kumpek's laugh was grim. If we're to die fighting impossible enemies, at least we'll die with honor. The High Council will sing of this battle. The Klingon Empire accepts your truce, Picard. Sella was silent for a long moment. Then, the Romulan Star Empire will honor a temporary ceasefire. But understand this, Picard. When this threat is neutralized, our discussion about these dimensional anomalies resumes. Agreed, Picard said. He focused on the spider trio. Miss Stacy, Mr. Brown, Ms. Parker, transport back to the Enterprise immediately. We need to coordinate a defense strategy, and you three are apparently central to it. But Gwen was staring at the fractures in space, her spider sense painting her a picture of futures cascading into darkness. She could feel it now, the hunger on the other side, the things that waited in the spaces between dimensions. They were aware, they were intelligent, and they knew the spider people were here. Captain, she said quietly, I don't think we should come back aboard. Q's right. We're the anchors. As long as we're on the Enterprise, we put your ship at risk. If those things come through, they'll come for us first. Then you'll be safest behind our shields and weapons, Picard insisted. Will we? Penny asked. Or will we just be putting your crew in danger? SP, Doctor and I have fought in open space before, so have Gwen and Hobie. Out here, we're mobile. Inside your ship, we're trapped. Hobie strummed his guitar, the sound somehow mournful in vacuum. Besides, if this is going to be our last stand, I'd rather go out fighting in the void than hiding behind someone else's shields. That's not very punk rock. Troy's voice came over the comm, thick with emotion. Captain, they're serious. They're not being reckless. They genuinely believe they're protecting us by staying out here. Q applauded, the sound transmitted psychically rather than through non-existent air. Oh, I do love it when mortals surprise me. Very well, little spiders. You want to fight in the void? Let me give you a parting gift. He snapped his fingers. Suddenly, the three spider people could breathe. Or rather, they didn't need to. Their bodies adapted, enhanced beyond their normal capabilities. Gwen felt her spider sense expand. Crystal clear and powerful. Hobie felt his strength multiply, his dimensional punk rock powers amplifying. And Penny felt SP, Shu, Shot Dar's systems surge to full capacity and beyond. Weapon systems coming online that she'd never installed. What did you do? Gwen demanded. Leveled the playing field, Q said. Your dimensional anomalies? Good. Now you're weaponized dimensional anomalies. For the next hour, you're going to operate at levels that would make most cosmic entities nervous. Use it wisely or don't. Free will and all that. He vanished in a flash of light, his parting words echoing across all frequencies. Oh, and Jean-Luc, do try not to let them die. I've grown rather fond of them. They remind me of you, hopelessly outmatched but too stubborn to admit it. And then in the distance, the fractures in space began to tear wider. Something vast and terrible stirred in the darkness between dimensions. The 47-minute countdown had begun. The Federation, Klingons, and Romulans had fought many battles across centuries of galactic history. They'd faced down the Borg, survived wars that spanned quadrants, and stared into the void of extinction more times than any species should have to endure. But this was different. This wasn't a battle for territory or ideology or survival of a single species. This was a battle to keep reality itself from unraveling. Captain Picard stood on the Enterprise bridge, coordinating a defense strategy with enemies turned temporary allies, and realized he was commanding the most bizarre fleet action in Starfleet history. All vessels establish a defensive perimeter around the dimensional fractures. Concentrate fire on anything that emerges. Commander Data, have you identified any weaknesses in the parasites' energy signatures? Data's fingers moved across his console with mechanical precision. Negative, Captain. The entity's dimensional frequency shifts constantly, making it impossible to establish a consistent targeting solution. However, I am detecting that they are most vulnerable when they first breach into our reality. There is a window of approximately 2.3 seconds before they fully stabilize. Then we target them during transition, Picard said. All ships, prepare to fire on my mark. Coordinate your weapons for maximum coverage of the breach points. On the lead Romulan warbird, Commander Sella issued orders with cold efficiency. All hands to battle stations. Disruptors to maximum yield. If these dimensional parasites want to feast on reality, let them choke on plasma first. Aboard the Klingon bird of prey, Captain Picard rallied his crew with the battle cry that had echoed through Klingon history. Today we fight not for conquest or glory, but for existence itself. Any warrior who falls today will enter Sto-vo-kor with the greatest honor. They died protecting the very fabric of reality. Qapla'. And floating in the void between all the ships, 3 spider people prepared for the fight of their lives. Gwen felt Q's enhancement coursing through her body like fire in her veins. Her spider sense had expanded from simple danger detection to something approaching tactical precognition. She could feel the flow of battle before it happened, see the web of possibility spreading out before her. Okay, team meeting in the vacuum of space. How do we fight things that eat dimensions? Penny's sensors were running combat calculations faster than SPRMA-DR's processors should have been capable of. The mech suit's weapons, missile pods, plasma cannons, energy blades, all hummed with power that exceeded their normal specifications. According to my readings, the parasites exist partially out of phase with our dimension. They're only vulnerable when they solidify to attack, so we need to hit them the moment they commit to manifesting. Right, so we wait for cosmic horrors to show up and then punch them in their dimensional faces, Hobie said, his guitar somehow transformed into a weapon. Strings that could slice through reality itself, chords that could disrupt quantum harmonics. I've had worse Tuesdays. The first fracture tore open like a wound in space. What emerged defied description. It had aspects of geometry, angles that existed in more than 3 dimensions, surfaces that reflected light that hadn't been emitted yet. It had aspects of biology, something like tentacles, something like mouths, something like eyes that saw through time. But mostly it was hunger, pure and absolute, the need to consume and unmake everything it touched. All ships, fire! Picard's command rang out across all channels. The combined firepower of 3 species, 3 philosophies, 3 historical enemies converged on the entity. Federation phasers, Romulan disruptors, and Klingon disruptor cannons all hammered into the parasite's partially manifested form. The energy release was spectacular. Space itself lit up with destructive power that could have vaporized a planet. The parasite screamed. The sound wasn't acoustic. It was psychic, dimensional, a shriek that resonated through subspace and made every living being in the fleet feel it in their bones. But it also recoiled, its form destabilizing, beginning to retreat back through the fracture. It's working, Worf reported, a grim satisfaction in his voice. The entity is withdrawing. Don't celebrate yet, Data said. Sensors detect 17 more fractures opening simultaneously. Gwen's enhanced spider sense felt them all, points of rupture spreading across space like a cancer. They're coordinating. The first one was a test. Now they're coming through in force. And they did. 17 fractures tore open, and through each one came nightmares. Some were massive, ship-sized horrors that moved through vacuum like predators through water. Others were smaller but faster, swarms of impossible geometries that darted between vessels. All of them radiated that same consuming hunger. The battle became chaos. The Enterprise's phaser arrays tracked and fired, cutting down smaller parasites as they swarmed toward the hull. One of the larger entities crashed against their shields, and the impact resonated through the ship's structure. Shields at 78%, Worf reported. That impact registered as the equivalent of a photon torpedo strike. The Romulan warbirds focused their fire on the larger entities. their plasma torpedoes detonating inside the parasites' semi-corporeal forms. Commander Sella's tactical genius showed as she maneuvered her ships to create overlapping fields of fire, denying the entity's safe approach vectors. But even her skill couldn't account for enemies that could partially phase through normal matter. One of the Klingon birds of prey took a direct hit from a parasite that materialized inside their shields. The dimensional horror wrapped around the ship's hull like a cancer, and the Klingon crew's warrior spirit met its match against an enemy that didn't fight with honor or tactics, only hunger. This is Captain Picard. Our sister ship Core's vengeance has been breached. They're fighting deck by deck, but the transmission cut off as the bird of prey's power signature fluctuated wildly. Penny, Hobie, with me. Gwen didn't wait for confirmation. She fired web lines into the void, and Q's enhancement meant they actually worked, creating dimensional bridges through empty space. She swung toward the stricken Klingon vessel, her spider sense guiding her through the swarm of smaller parasites. SP launch thrusters fired, Penny's enhanced reflexes pushing the mech suit to velocities it had never achieved before. I'm reading massive dimensional instability inside that ship. The parasites eating the antimatter containment fields. If it breaches the warp core, the ship explodes and takes half the fleet with it, Hobie finished, swinging alongside them on web lines that he created through sheer punk rock defiance of physics. So we stopped that from happening. They crashed onto the Klingon ship's hull, magnetic boots and enhanced strength letting them navigate the exterior, while space around them became a war zone. Gwen could feel the Klingons inside fighting desperately, their warrior code demanding they die with honor even as they faced an enemy beyond honor or dishonor. We need to get inside, Gwen said. Penny, can SP shot Dieter cut through the hull without compromising the ship's integrity? SP Dieter can do anything today, Penny said, and the mech suit's energy blades activated. Not simple plasma cutters, but dimensional scissors that could slice through the barriers between realities. She carved an entrance, and the three spider people dropped into the Klingon vessel's corridors. The interior was nightmare made manifest. The dimensional parasite had spread through 3 decks, its form splitting and reforming as it consumed everything in its path. Bulkheads, equipment, and when it caught them, crew members. Klingon warriors fought with batliths and disruptors, their weapons barely slowing the entity's advance. A Klingon officer, his armor scarred and his face bleeding from a dozen cuts where the parasite had touched him, turned to face the newcomers. Who? The dimensional anomalies? Have you come to die with us? We've come to save you, Gwen said, her enhanced spider sense mapping the parasite's structure through 6 dimensions. But we need you to evacuate this section. Fall back to engineering and seal the bulkheads. Klingons do not retreat, the officer roared. Then Klingons are idiots, Hobie shot back. This thing doesn't care about your honor. It just wants to eat. So unless you want your noble sacrifice to mean nothing, get your people to safety and let us work. The officer's eyes blazed with fury, but he was also pragmatic enough to recognize when retreat was strategic rather than cowardly. Fall back, maintain firing positions, and cover the anomalies. He grabbed Gwen's arm. If you fail, we will sing no songs of you. If we fail, there won't be anyone left to sing, Gwen said. The Klingons retreated in disciplined ranks, maintaining fire as they fell back. The bulkheads sealed with heavy thuds, leaving the spider people alone with the dimensional horror. Penny's sensors analyzed the parasite's structure. Okay, so it's not really here in a traditional sense. Most of its mass exists in other dimensions. What we're seeing is just the part that's manifested to feed. If we can disrupt its dimensional anchoring, we shove it back through the fracture, Gwen completed. How? With this, Hobie said, his guitar humming with frequencies that resonated through multiple dimensions. Q didn't just enhance our powers. He made us weapons against things like this. We're dimensional anomalies. We don't fully belong here either, which means we can touch it in ways normal matter can't. He struck a chord, and the sound wave that emerged was visible. Ripples in space-time itself that crashed into the parasite's manifested form. The entity shrieked and recoiled, its substance destabilizing. But it also lashed out, tentacles of impossible geometry reaching for Hobie. Gwen's web lines intercepted the attack, her webs, enhanced by Q's power, actually sticking to the parasite's dimensional structure. I've got it! Penny, hit it with everything you've got! SP Chakchiar's weapon systems opened fire. Missiles that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, plasma beams that cut through the barriers between realities, energy blades that could slice through the fabric of space itself. The parasite screamed as its anchor points to this dimension shattered. But it wasn't alone. Through the hull, through dimensions, two more parasites manifested, drawn by the distress signals of their fellow horror. Gwen's spider sense exploded with warnings. They were surrounded, outnumbered, and even with Q's enhancement, they were still three teenagers fighting cosmic nightmares aboard a ship that could explode at any moment. "This is insane," Peni said. SP, Rod Doctor pivoting to face the new threats. "This is what we do," Gwen countered. "We fight the impossible. We protect people. Even when the people are Klingons who think honor matters more than survival. And we do it with style," Hobie added, striking another reality-warping chord. "Because if we're going to die in space fighting dimensional parasites alongside an alliance of space empires who normally want to kill each other, we might as well go out like the heroes we are." The three parasites converged and the spider people met them head-on, web lines and dimensional guitar chords, and a giant mech suit piloted by a 14-year-old girl who'd already saved her universe once and wasn't about to let this one fall. Outside, the fleet continued its desperate defense. But inside the Corps' vengeance, three impossible heroes fought a battle that would be remembered, if anyone survived to remember it. The battle inside the Corps' vengeance became a hurricane of dimensional chaos. Three spider people against three parasites that existed across multiple realities simultaneously. It was less a fight and more a collision of incompatible physics. Gwen swung through the Klingon corridors, her web lines creating geometric patterns that trapped one of the parasites in a three-dimensional cage. But the entity simply phased through her webs, emerging on the other side with hungry tendrils reaching for her. Her spider sense screamed, and she twisted mid-swing, narrowly avoiding an appendage that left frost burns on the bulkhead where it passed. "They're adapting," she called out. "My webs work for about 3 seconds before they figure out how to phase through them." Penny's analytical mind processed the problem even as SP Daughter fought off another parasite. The mech suit's energy blades carved through the entity's manifested form, but each strike felt like cutting through water, effective for a moment, then the parasite simply reformed around the damage. "It's because they're learning our dimensional frequency. They're matching our phase variance to neutralize our attacks. Then we don't give them time to adapt," Hobie said, his fingers flying across his guitar strings. He'd discovered that certain chord progressions disrupted the parasite's coherence, dissonant harmonics that resonated through dimensions they couldn't quite process. He played a screaming riff that sounded like reality tearing, and all three parasites recoiled simultaneously. But the cost was evident. Hobie's fingers were bleeding now, the strings of his dimensional guitar cutting through his enhanced flesh. The punk rocker's face behind the mask was pale with effort. "I can hold them off, but not for long. We need a permanent solution, yeah?" Gwen's mind raced. They were in a Klingon ship, which meant Klingon technology. And Klingons, for all their warrior philosophy, built their ships around one core principle: overwhelming, destructive power. The warp core. "Penny, what would happen if we overloaded it right next to these things?" Penny's eyes widened inside SP-DR's cockpit. "A warp core breach? That's a antimatter explosion. It would destroy the ship, everything within 100,000 kilometers, and probably tear a hole in subspace that would..." She paused, her engineer's mind catching up to the implications. "That would create a massive dimensional shockwave. If we timed it right, we could use the explosion to shove the parasites back through their fractures and seal the rifts behind them." "Brilliant and completely insane," Hobie said, still playing his reality-warping guitar. "I love it. One problem, though, we die in the explosion." "Not if we can transport out at the last second," Gwen said. She tapped the communicator she'd been given by the Enterprise crew. "Picard, are you hearing this?" The captain's voice came back strained. The Enterprise was clearly engaged in its own desperate battle. "Mrs. Stacy, I cannot authorize a plan that involves detonating a Klingon vessel. The political ramifications alone..." "Captain Picard," Gwen interrupted, switching channels. "We're aboard the Corps' vengeance, and we have a plan to drive these things back. But it requires sacrificing your ship. Your call." There was a pause. In the background, Gwen could hear weapons fire, alerts, the sounds of Klingons fighting and dying, with the honor they prized above all else. Then Compek's voice, grim but resolute. The Corps' vengeance is already lost. Her crew has evacuated to our remaining vessels. If her death can serve the greater battle, then she will die gloriously. Proceed with your plan, young warriors, and may you find honor in Sto-vo-kor. We're not dying today, Peni said firmly. SP, Boar, Doctor, and I have too much to do back home, but we appreciate the sentiment. The three spider people fought their way toward engineering, the parasites pursuing with relentless hunger. The Klingon ship's corridors became a maze of dimensional horror, walls that bled colors that shouldn't exist, floors that existed in multiple states simultaneously, ceilings that rippled with the parasite's touch. They burst into main engineering to find it already compromised. The warp core pulsed with unstable energy, its antimatter containment fields flickering as one of the parasites fed on the exotic particles. The entity had grown massive here, fed by the ship's power systems, and it turned its attention to the newcomers with something approaching intelligence. Okay, new problem, Peni said, SP, Shush, Dar's sensors screaming warnings. That thing's partially merged with the warp core. If we detonate now, it might survive the explosion by phasing out at the last second. Gwen's enhanced spider sense was painting her a picture of cascading futures, most of them ending in failure. But there, one thread of possibility, thin and desperate but real. We need to anchor it here, make it so solid in this dimension that it can't phase out when the core blows. And how exactly do we do that? Hobie demanded, still playing his guitar to keep the other two parasites at bay. By giving it something it wants more than pure energy, Gwen said. Us. We're dimensional anomalies, remember. We're exotic matter to these things, living, breathing paradoxes that shouldn't exist. If we can make ourselves irresistible bait, it'll manifest fully to consume us, Peni completed, horror and admiration mixing in her voice. And then it won't be able to phase out fast enough when the core explodes. That's mental, Hobie said. I'm in. They moved as one, three spider people who'd fought together across dimensions, who'd learned to trust each other with their lives. Gwen fired web lines directly into the merged parasite warp core entity, her webs carrying her dimensional signature like a challenge. Peni had SP, Shush, Dar release concentrated bursts of the radioactive spider energy that powered the suit, the biologically impossible radiation that defined spider people across the multiverse. And Hobie played, not dissonant chords now, but a melody that resonated with their shared existence, a song that said, we are here, we are real, we are everything you want to consume. The parasite's response was immediate and overwhelming. It manifested fully, its entire dimensional mass flooding into their reality, abandoning caution for the chance to devour these impossible beings. The entity became solid as something from beyond dimensions could be, and reached for them with appendages of crystallized hunger. Now, Gwen screamed, Peni, overload the core. Peni's fingers flew across SP Dar's control systems, interfacing with the Klingon ship's computers through protocols that shouldn't have been compatible but were because Q had enhanced them beyond normal limitations. Containment fields offline. Matter-antimatter stream mixing in 7 seconds. Enterprise-3 to beam directly to your bridge, Gwen commanded. Do it now. The transporter beam caught them, gold light that felt like salvation and violation simultaneously. The last thing Gwen saw before the transport completed was the parasite realizing its mistake, trying to phase out, finding itself too solid, too committed to this reality. They materialized on the Enterprise bridge in a cascade of gold light. Picard was on his feet immediately. All ships, maximum warp, evasive pattern Omega. Get clear of the blast radius. The core's vengeance exploded. But this wasn't a normal warp core breach. This was a dimensional bomb, the matter-antimatter explosion occurring in the same space as a fully manifested interdimensional entity. The resulting detonation was visible across 3 dimensions simultaneously. A sphere of white-hot fury that expanded at faster-than-light speeds, carrying with it a shock wave that rippled through subspace itself. The parasites screamed. All of them, across all the fractures, felt the death of one of their kind and the dimensional disruption it caused. The entities began retreating, pulling back through their dimensional rifts as the shock wave approached. Data's fingers moved across his console. Captain, The dimensional shock wave is destabilizing the fractures. They're beginning to seal. On the view screen, they could see it happening. Cracks in reality stitching themselves closed. The parasites fleeing back to whatever nightmare dimensions they'd emerged from. The fleet's coordinated fire drove them back, and the warp core explosion's dimensional echo provided the final push. One by one, the fractures sealed. 17 points of breach became 10, then 5, then 2. And finally, after what felt like hours but was only minutes, silence. The last fracture closed with a soundless implosion. And space returned to normal, or as normal as it ever got in the Star Trek universe. The bridge crew stood in stunned silence. Then Worf spoke, respect evident in his voice. They destroyed a Klingon warship from the inside and used the explosion to save the fleet. That was glorious. Gwen, Penny, and Hobie stood on the bridge, exhausted and battered, but alive. Hobie's fingers were still bleeding. Penny was shaking with adrenaline inside SP Warshdoar's cockpit, and Gwen's spider sense had gone blessedly quiet for the first time since they'd arrived in this universe. Is it over? Penny asked quietly. Data checked his sensors. The dimensional fractures have sealed. Subspace is stabilizing. There are no remaining parasites in our dimensional space. For now, a familiar voice said, and Q appeared on the bridge, applauding slowly. Oh, brava! That was magnificent. I particularly enjoyed the part where you sacrificed a Klingon warship. Very dramatic. Q, Picard said wearily, was any of this real, or was it another of your tests? Does it matter, Q countered. The parasites were real. The threat was real. The heroism, he gestured at the spider people, was definitely real. Whether I orchestrated the circumstances or merely took advantage of them is rather philosophical, don't you think? I think you're a manipulative bastard, Hobie said bluntly. Q laughed with genuine delight. Oh, I like you. Very well, little spiders. You've passed my test. You saved this reality through courage, intelligence, and a reckless disregard for your own survival. Very Starfleet of you, actually. He looked at Picard. Jean-Luc, they're remarkable. If your species could produce beings like this naturally, you might actually become interesting. We're not from his species, Gwen pointed out. We're from completely different universes. Semantics, Q dismissed. You've proven yourselves worthy of existence in this reality. And so, he snapped his fingers. Nothing happened. I'm sending you home, Q said. The dimensional barriers are sealed, but I can open one corridor, one chance, for you to return to your own universes. The catch is, you have to go now. This moment, no goodbyes, no long farewells, no tearful endings. Just a choice. Stay in this universe where you're permanent dimensional refugees, or go home to the worlds you left behind. The three spider people looked at each other. They'd fought together, bled together, saved a reality together. And now they had seconds to decide their futures. I want to go home, Penny said quietly. My aunt, my friends, my New York, they need me. My dimension needs someone to keep fighting Osborn, Hobie agreed. Can't let the fascists win just because I took an interdimensional vacation. Gwen looked at the Enterprise crew, Picard's steady leadership, Data's curious intelligence, Worf's warrior honor, Troy's empathic kindness. She looked at the view screen showing the Romulan and Klingon vessels, enemies who'd become allies for one shining moment. She looked at a universe built on exploration and hope, and the belief that people could be better. I want to go home too, she said, but thank you for protecting us, for trusting us, for showing us that even in a universe where we didn't belong, people could still be heroes. Picard stepped forward. Ms. Stacy, Mr. Brown, Ms. Parker, on behalf of the United Federation of Planets, thank you. You saved countless lives today. If circumstances were different, we'd probably join Starfleet and have amazing adventures. Gwen finished with a sad smile. But our adventures are back home. With great power comes great responsibility, and we've got responsibilities waiting for us. Q opened three-dimensional rifts, each one a shimmering portal back to a different Earth, a different New York, a different life. Your exit awaits. Oh, and one more thing. He snapped his fingers, and their injuries healed. Hobie's bleeding fingers sealed. Penny's exhaustion vanished. Gwen's bruises faded. Can't send you home damaged. What would people think of Federation hospitality? The three spider people stood at the threshold of home. Penny went first, SP Doctor, stepping through the rift into a universe of anime aesthetics and giant robots. Goodbye, Data. I hope you find what you're looking for. Whatever makes you more than just programming. Hobie was next, his guitar slung over his shoulder. Remember, Picard, just because you've got a utopia doesn't mean you stop fighting for it. The moment you get comfortable is the moment the fascists start winning. He grinned behind his mask. But you knew that already. Later, Space Empire. Gwen was last. She looked at the crew one final time. Live long and prosper, she said, making the Vulcan salute. And if you ever figure out how to cross dimensions on purpose, look us up. The multiverse could use more people like you. She stepped through the rift, and it closed behind her with a sound like a sigh. Q turned to Picard. Well, Jean-Luc, what did we learn today? That heroism transcends dimensions, Picard said quietly, and that responsibility is universal. Boring but accurate, Q said. Oh, and one more thing. The dimensional barriers are sealed, but they're scarred. Eventually, something else will find those weak points. Might take years, might take centuries. But this won't be the last time something impossible visits your cozy little reality. He vanished in a flash of light, his parting words echoing, Try not to die before then. It would be terribly disappointing. The bridge was silent. Then Commander Riker spoke from his position beside the captain. Sir, the Romulan and Klingon vessels are hailing us. On screen, Commander Sella appeared, her expression unreadable. Captain Picard, today we fought alongside each other against a common threat. Do not mistake this for friendship or alliance. When next we meet, we will be enemies again. Understood, Commander, Picard said. But perhaps we'll both remember that when faced with extinction, enemies can become allies. Sella's lips quirked in something that wasn't quite a smile. Perhaps. The channel closed. Captain Picard was next, his fierce warrior's face split by a grin. Picard, those dimensional warriors fought with honor. They sacrificed a Klingon ship to save the fleet. There will be songs. The High Council will hear of this day. As will the Federation Council, Picard agreed. Today, honor transcended species. Kapla, Captain Picard. Kapla, Picard! The channel closed, and the Klingon vessels jumped to warp. The Romulan ships cloaked and vanished, and the Enterprise was alone again, floating in space that had very nearly stopped existing. Picard sat in his command chair, suddenly feeling every one of his years. Mr. Data, commence full sensor sweeps. I want to ensure no dimensional fractures remain. Aye, Captain. Data worked in silence for a moment, then added, Captain, I find myself affected by Miss Parker's farewell. She expressed hope that I would find what I'm looking for. I am uncertain what she meant. Humanity, Data, Troy said softly. She meant she hopes you find your humanity. But I am an android. I cannot be human. No, Picard agreed. But you can be more than your programming, just as those three were more than their powers. They were heroes because they chose to be, not because they had to be. Data considered this. Then perhaps I too can choose what I become. Perhaps you can, Mr. Data. Perhaps you can. 3 days after the dimensional crisis, the Enterprise continued its survey mission, but the entire crew knew nothing would ever be quite the same. They'd seen the barriers between realities, fought entities that existed beyond conventional physics, and witnessed 3 teenagers save the galaxy through courage and improvisation. In engineering, Geordi LaForge was analyzing the residual dimensional signatures left by the Spider People's presence. It's remarkable, he said to Data, who'd volunteered to assist with the analysis. Even after they left, there are traces of their dimensional frequency in our subspace field harmonics. It's like they left an echo. Data examined the data with his usual precision. An apt metaphor, their presence fundamentally altered local spacetime in measurable ways. The dimensional barriers in this region are now 3.7% more resistant to rupture than before they arrived. It is as if the universe itself learned from the encounter and adapted. The universe learned? Geordi smiled behind his visor. That's almost poetic, Data. I have been contemplating Miss Parker's words, Data admitted. She suggested I might find what I'm looking for. I have analyzed our interactions extensively, attempting to understand what she perceived that I had not. Geordi set down his tricorder. And what did you come up with? She recognized a kinship between us, Data said. She exists in symbiosis with a machine. Neither fully human nor fully artificial, but something that transcends the binary distinction. I am an android attempting to understand humanity. Perhaps what I seek is not to become human, but to transcend the distinction entirely, to become something that is both and neither simultaneously. That's pretty profound for a Thursday afternoon, Geordi said. But I think you're onto something. Those kids weren't trying to be anything other than what they were. They just accepted that they were different and made it work. In 10 Forward, Guinan served drinks to an unusually contemplative Worf. The Klingon tactical officer had been quiet since the battle, his honor-bound warrior philosophy challenged by what he'd witnessed. They destroyed a Klingon ship from within, Worf said, staring into his prune juice. By our codes, that should be an act of dishonor, cowardice, sabotage. Yet it was the most honorable thing I've witnessed in years. They sacrificed their safety, risked their lives, and saved the entire fleet. Sounds like your definition of honor is expanding, Guinan observed. Perhaps, Worf admitted grudgingly. The young female, Gwen Stacy, told me she fights to keep people alive, not for honor or glory. I dismissed her philosophy as weakness, but she demonstrated more courage in one battle than most Klingons show in a lifetime of service. And that bothers you? It challenges everything I was taught. Worf's hands clenched around his glass. Klingon honor requires facing enemies directly, dying in glorious combat, earning your place in Sto-vo-kor through battle. But these dimensional warriors fought for survival, for protection of others, for responsibility. They had no concern for glory or songs, yet they exemplified everything honor should mean. Guinan smiled knowingly. Maybe honor isn't about following rules. Maybe it's about doing what's right, even when it's hard, even when no one's watching, even when there are no songs. A dangerous philosophy for a Klingon, Worf said, but he didn't sound entirely unconvinced. On the bridge, Captain Picard filed his official report to Starfleet Command, carefully documenting the dimensional incursion, the alliance with Romulan and Klingon forces, and the role of the three-dimensional refugees in saving the fleet. He left out Q's involvement. Q's interventions were classified at the highest levels, and introducing that variable would complicate an already complex situation. Admiral Nechaev's face appeared on his screen, her expression skeptical. Captain, your report describes dimensional parasites, teenage superheroes from parallel universes, and a temporary alliance with the Romulans and Klingons. I'm trying to decide if this is the most remarkable first contact event in Starfleet history, or if someone spiked the Enterprise's water supply with hallucinogens. I assure you, Admiral, every word is accurate, Picard said with the patience of someone who dealt with Starfleet bureaucracy for decades. Commander Data's sensor logs corroborate everything, as do the sensor logs from the Romulan and Klingon vessels, which I'm certain their governments will deny exist. Of course they will, Nechaev sighed. The political implications alone are giving the Federation Council headaches. A temporary alliance with the Romulans? Captain Kumpek sacrificing a warship on your recommendation? And these spider people? Captain, you're describing beings with abilities that violate known biological principles. They violated many principles, Admiral. That was rather the point. They were dimensional anomalies by definition. And they're gone now, permanently? Picard hesitated. Q's parting words echoed in his memory. The dimensional barriers are sealed, but they're scarred. According to our analysis, yes, the dimensional rifts have sealed, and there's no indication they can return or that we could retrieve them even if we wanted to. Good. Nechaev's relief was evident. The last thing we need is Starfleet officers getting ideas about dimensional travel. The temporal mechanics alone would drive the Department of Temporal Investigations insane. Agreed, Admiral. However, Nechaev's tone shifted to something approaching grudging respect. Your handling of the situation was exemplary. You coordinated a multi-species defense fleet, protected dimensional refugees, and prevented a catastrophic breach in space-time. Starfleet Command is officially commending you and your crew. Unofficially, we're hoping nothing like this ever happens again. As am I, Admiral. As am I. In Counselor Troy's office, she met with several crew members who'd been affected by the dimensional crisis. Ensign Martinez, who'd been on duty in Transporter Room 2 when the Spider people first arrived, was struggling with what she'd witnessed. They were just kids, Martinez said, her hands shaking slightly. Teenagers. One of them was 14, and they went out into space to fight monsters that could eat reality. How am I supposed to process that? By recognizing their courage, Troy said gently. Age doesn't determine heroism. They were young, yes, but they'd been heroes in their own universes for years. They knew what they were doing. But they shouldn't have had to, Martinez insisted. We're Starfleet. We're supposed to protect people, especially children. Instead, we let 3 kids save us. They didn't let us save them because they knew they were our best chance at survival, Troy corrected. Sometimes accepting help is harder than giving it. The captain understood that. He trusted them to do what needed to be done, even though every instinct told him to protect them. Martinez was quiet for a moment. I joined Starfleet to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations. I never thought those new lives would be teenagers with spider powers from parallel dimensions. That's the beauty of exploration, Troy said with a slight smile. You never know what you'll discover, or who'll discover you. In the ship's library, a gathering had formed, crew members sharing their encounters with the spider people, comparing notes, trying to make sense of what had happened. Lieutenant Barclay, perpetually anxious and socially awkward, found himself at the center of a conversation about the psychological implications of dimensional travel. The disorientation alone would be catastrophic, Barclay said, his stutter notably absent when discussing technical topics. You'd be separated from everything you know, your world, your friends, your entire reality. The psychological trauma should have been debilitating. Yet those 3 functioned at peak capacity almost immediately. Because they'd done it before, a junior science officer suggested. Ms. Stacy mentioned something about fighting across dimensions. Maybe they'd experienced dimensional travel multiple times. That would create its own psychological issues, another crew member countered. Constantly being torn from one reality and thrust into another, never knowing if you'll see your home again. The existential anxiety would be overwhelming. Unless you had a support system, Barclay said thoughtfully, they had each other. 3 people from different dimensions who understood what the others were experiencing. That shared trauma could create bonds stronger than any normal relationship. The conversation continued, crew members processing their encounter with the impossible through analysis and discussion. It was the Starfleet way. When faced with the inexplicable, study it, understand it, learn from it. Meanwhile, in sickbay, Dr. Beverly Crusher completed her medical analysis of the biological samples the spider people had inadvertently left behind. Every surface they'd touched, every breath they'd taken in atmosphere, had left traces. And those traces were scientifically fascinating. Their DNA is chimeric, she explained to Dr. Seller, the Vulcan physician who'd assisted with the analysis. Human base pairs interwoven with arachnid genetic sequences that should be incompatible but function perfectly. It's as if evolution took 2 completely different paths and somehow made them work together. Fascinating, Dr. Seller said, her Vulcan composure unshaken by the impossible biology. The probability of such genetic compatibility occurring naturally approaches 0. It suggests external intervention, either technological or some form of directed evolution. Radioactive spider bites, Beverly said, still unable to quite believe it. That's what Ms. Parker said. A radioactive spider bit them, and their DNA was rewritten at the molecular level. It's absurd. It violates every principle of genetic engineering and evolutionary biology. Yet it occurred, Dr. Seller pointed out. The evidence is irrefutable. Perhaps our understanding of genetic compatibility is incomplete. These individuals came from universes where different physical laws apply. What is impossible here may be routine there. Beverly looked at the genetic sequences on her display. I keep thinking about Ms. Stacy's comment about responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. They were given abilities that made them superhuman, and instead of using that power for personal gain, they chose to protect people. Every day. For years. An admirable philosophy, Dr. Seller agreed, though I note it contains an assumption that power inherently creates obligation. From a Vulcan perspective, this is not logical. Power is neutral, neither moral nor immoral. It is the choice of how to use power that creates ethical dimensions. But they didn't see it as a choice, Beverly said. For them, having the power to help meant they had to help. It wasn't optional. Then they chose to eliminate their own choices, Dr. Seller said, a curious form of self-imposed determinism. Yet it clearly served them well. Beverly saved the genetic data to a classified file that only she and Captain Picard could access. The information was too dangerous to share widely. The temptation to recreate the Spider People's abilities would be overwhelming for some. Better to keep their secrets safe, honor their privacy even across dimensional barriers. In his ready room, Picard sipped tea and contemplated the framed copy of the Picard family vineyard he kept on his desk. He thought about roots, the deep connections to place, family, history that defined who people were. And he thought about 3 teenagers who'd been torn from their roots and thrust into an alien universe, yet still managed to be heroes. The door chimed. "Come," Guinan entered, carrying her own cup of tea. "Thought you might want company." "I thought you'd be in 10 forward," Picard said, gesturing for her to sit. "I'm taking a break. Besides, I wanted to check on you." Guinan settled into the chair across from him. "You look like a man with philosophical questions he can't answer." "I've been thinking about choice," Picard admitted. "Those 3 young people chose to risk their lives for us, for strangers in a strange universe. They could have hidden, let us handle the threat, protected themselves, but they didn't. Because they were heroes," Guinan said simply. "But what makes someone a hero? Is it the powers, the abilities, or is it the choice to use those abilities for others?" "You already know the answer, Jean-Luc. You've been making that choice your entire career." Picard smiled slightly. "I suppose I have, but I chose Starfleet. I chose exploration and discovery. They didn't choose their powers. They were thrust upon them by accident, yet they still chose to be heroes." "Maybe that's what makes them truly remarkable," Guinan said. "Not the powers, but the choice to use them well, despite never asking for them. That's a harder path than choosing a calling. That's accepting a responsibility you never sought and deciding to honor it anyway. With great power comes great responsibility," Picard quoted Ms. Stacy's words. Simple, almost childishly simple, yet profound. The best truths usually are. Guinan sipped her tea. "So what will you do with this experience? What will the Federation do?" "We'll learn," Picard said. "We'll prepare for the possibility of future dimensional incursions. We'll remember that heroism comes in unexpected forms. And we'll honor the memory of 3 young people who saved us all." He paused. "And perhaps we'll be a little more open to the impossible." "That sounds very Starfleet of you, doesn't it?" Picard's smile widened. "They reminded me why I chose this life, why I believe in the Federation and its ideals. Because when faced with the impossible, we don't retreat, we adapt, we learn, we grow. And sometimes," Guinan added, "we let children teach us how to be brave." "Indeed." They sat in comfortable silence, 2 friends contemplating the infinite complexity of the universe and the remarkable people who inhabited it, whether from this dimension or any other. The crisis appeared to be over. The dimensional fractures were sealed, the parasites driven back to whatever nightmare realm they'd emerged from, and the fleet had dispersed. Federation, Klingon, and Romulan vessels returning to their respective territories with an uneasy truce in shared trauma binding them. But Q's warning lingered like a ghost in Picard's thoughts. The dimensional barriers are sealed, but they're scarred. It was Chief Engineer LaForge who first detected the anomaly. "Captain, to the bridge." His voice crackled over the comm with unusual urgency. "We have a situation." Picard arrived to find his senior staff already assembled, all eyes on the main view screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. Space itself was bleeding. Not the violent tears of the parasites' invasion, but something subtler and far more disturbing. Hairline fractures spreading across the fabric of reality like cracks in ice, each one glowing with a sickly purple luminescence. They weren't opening, not yet, but they were spreading, growing, connecting into a web pattern that looked disturbingly familiar. "It's a spider web," Troy said quietly, voicing what everyone was thinking. "A dimensional spider web." Data's fingers flew across his console. "Captain, I am detecting the same dimensional frequency signatures as the spider people, but these fractures are not breaching points. They appear to be structural reinforcements." "Explain," Picard commanded. "When a spider web is damaged, the spider repairs it by weaving new threads that redistribute tension across the entire structure," Data said. "These fractures appear to be serving a similar function. The dimensional barriers were weakened by the parasite's attack. What we are witnessing is reality attempting to repair itself using the spider people's dimensional signatures as a template." Geordi looked up from his engineering station. "The universe is literally using their energy patterns to patch itself. It's brilliant. Instead of just sealing the damage, space-time is creating a distributed support network that's actually stronger than before. But there's a problem, Data continued, his tone carrying what might have been concern in a human. The repair process requires energy, massive amounts of dimensional energy, and that energy is being drawn from... The ship rocked violently. Red alert klaxons blared across all decks. "Shields are being drained," Worf reported, his hands working frantically across tactical. "Not by an external attack. The dimensional web is pulling power directly from our warp core. All Federation vessels in this sector are reporting the same phenomenon," Data said, as are the Romulan and Klingon ships that participated in the battle. "The dimensional web is drawing energy from every ship that was present during the parasites' attack." Picard's mind raced. "It's using us as power sources because we were exposed to the Spider People's dimensional frequencies. We're contaminated with their energy signatures, and the universe is harvesting that energy to complete the repairs." "Captain, at current drain rates, we'll lose warp power in 17 minutes, Geordi reported. "Life support will fail in 43 minutes. "Can we disrupt the energy drain?" "Negative," Data said. "The dimensional web exists outside normal space-time. We cannot affect it with conventional weapons or technology. It is, effectively, invulnerable to our intervention." On the view screen, the web continued to grow, each strand of purple light connecting fractures across thousands of kilometers of space. It was beautiful in a terrible way. A cosmic spider web woven from the fabric of reality itself, holding together a universe that had nearly torn apart, and it was killing them. "All hands, this is the captain," Picard said, his voice steady despite the crisis. "Divert all non-essential power to life support. Prepare for emergency evacuation procedures. We may need to abandon ship." "Captain," Troy said suddenly, her empathic senses flaring, "I'm feeling something. A presence. Multiple presences. They're not hostile. They're familiar." The dimensional web pulsed with light, and 3 figures materialized on the bridge. Spider-Gwen, SP, Josh Docker with Peni Parker, and Spider-Punk stood in the center of the Enterprise bridge, looking as shocked as the crew. "Okay, this is officially weird even by our standards," Hobie said, looking around. "We were back in our universes, doing our thing, and then the dimensional barriers just yanked us back here, like reality itself grabbed us." Gwen's spider sense was screaming, but not with danger, with recognition. She looked at the view screen, at the web of dimensional cracks, and understanding dawned. "Oh no! Oh, this is bad! Mrs. Stacy?" Picard stepped forward. "What's happening?" "The universe is using us," Penny said, SP Darar's sensors analyzing the dimensional web. "Our energy signatures were strong enough to fight the parasites, so now reality is using those same signatures as a framework for repairs. But the repair process needs power, and it's drawing that power from everyone we came into contact with." "Can you stop it?" Picard asked. "Maybe," Gwen said, "but not the way you're thinking. We can't just shut down the repair process. If we do, the dimensional barriers will collapse completely, and those parasites will come flooding back. The repairs need to be completed." "Then we need to find another power source," Data said, "one that can provide the dimensional energy required without killing everyone in the fleet." Hobie strummed his guitar thoughtfully. "What if the power source is us? We're dimensional anomalies. We've got that exotic frequency the universe is trying to copy. What if we feed our energy directly into the web? Give it what it needs so it stops draining your ships." "That could kill you," Beverly said, speaking up from her position near the medical console. "The amount of energy required, you'd be completely drained. Your enhanced physiology might not survive." "Then we don't do it alone," Penny said. She looked at the view screen, at the spreading web. "That pattern, it's not random. It's structured like a real spider web. Radial threads, spiral threads, connection points. If we position ourselves at key nodes in the structure and feed our energy in simultaneously, we might be able to stabilize the entire system." "A distributed network approach," Data said, immediate comprehension in his voice. "Rather than one source providing all the energy, multiple sources each provide a fraction. The strain is distributed across all participants." "But you only have 3 power sources," Geordi pointed out. "Even distributed, that's still an enormous energy requirement per person." Gwen's enhanced spider sense suddenly flared with possibility. She turned to Data. You said everyone who was exposed to our dimensional frequency is being drained by the web? What if we reverse that? What if instead of the web taking energy from them, we use them as conduits to feed energy into the web? A feedback loop, Data said, excitement creeping into his android voice. The ships provide supplementary power, channeled through the spider people as focusing points and directed into the dimensional web's repair structure. The strain would be distributed across dozens of vessels and 3 enhanced individuals. It would require unprecedented coordination, Picard said. We'd need the cooperation of every ship in range, Federation, Klingon, and Romulan. Then we better start making call, Hobie said, because your power's dropping, and I'm pretty sure Starfleet frowns on officers dying from dimensional energy vampirism. Picard moved to his command chair. Mr. Worf, open channels to all vessels affected by the dimensional drain. Priority 1, and someone find me Commander Sella and Captain Picard. The next few minutes were a masterclass in crisis diplomacy. Picard explained the situation to increasingly skeptical commanders from 3 different galactic powers, each one weighing survival against trust and cooperation against suspicion. Commander Sella's image appeared on a split screen alongside Captain Picard. Both looked haggard. Their ships were experiencing the same power drain. Captain Picard, Sella said, her voice tight with controlled fury. If this is some Federation trick— It's not a trick, Commander, Picard interrupted. It's survival. The dimensional web is draining all of us equally. The spider people have returned and proposed a solution, but it requires every ship to voluntarily channel power through them into the dimensional repair structure. You're asking us to trust teenage aliens with our ship's power cores, Sella said flatly. I'm asking you to survive, Picard countered. You have 17 minutes before your warp core fails. 13 minutes after that, your life support dies and your crew begins suffocating. This is your only option. Compek's laugh was bitter. The human has a point, Romulan. Death by dimensional web or trust in the warriors who saved us once before? I choose trust. He leaned forward. The Klingon vessels will provide power. We fought beside these warriors. We will stand with them again. Sella's expression warred between pragmatism and pride. Finally, pragmatism won. The Romulan fleet will participate. But Picard, if this fails, if my crew dies because of this plan, I will personally hunt down everyone involved. Noted, Commander. Mr. Data, coordinate with all vessels. Establish a power distribution network centered on the 3 spider people. Data's fingers moved with impossible speed. Calculating optimal positioning now. Miss Stacy, you will need to position yourself at coordinates 227 Mark 5. Mr. Brown, coordinates 173 Mark -4. Ms. Parker, coordinates 358 Mark 9. Each position corresponds to a major connection node in the dimensional web. How do we get there? Gwen asked. We'll transport you, Picard said. Mr. O'Brien, prepare— Wait, Penny interrupted. Your transporters use matter-energy conversion, right? What if that process interferes with our dimensional frequencies? We could destabilize the entire web by accident. She's correct, Data confirmed. The risk is unacceptable. Then we travel the old-fashioned way, Hobie said. He fired a web line that attached to nothing, or rather to the dimensional web itself, invisible strands of reality that his enhanced powers could now perceive and interact with. Q's enhancement is still active. We can swing on the web itself. Gwen and Penny tested the theory, their web lines attaching to dimensional strands that shouldn't exist but did. It was like swinging on light, on thought, on the fundamental structure of space-time. This is so weird, Penny said as SP Doctor prepared to launch. We're literally using cracks in reality as a jungle gym. It's not the weirdest thing we've done this week, Gwen pointed out. Fair. The 3 spider people launched from the Enterprise, swinging through space on impossible web lines toward their designated positions. The fleet watched as 3 dots of color moved through the cosmic spider web, each one heading toward a glowing node where dozens of dimensional fractures converged. Gwen reached her position first, a nexus point where 17 different fractures intersected. She could feel the pull immediately, the web trying to draw energy from her, from the Enterprise, from every ship in range. Her spider sense showed her the flow of power, the desperate hunger of a universe trying to heal itself. I'm in position, she reported over the comm. SP, Josh, Doctor, and I are ready, Penny confirmed from her node. In position and deeply questioning my life choices, Hobie added, but ready. All vessels, stand by to transfer power on my mark, Picard commanded. This is going to be tricky. We need to provide enough energy to complete the repairs, but not so much that we overload the Spider People's capacity to channel it. Mr. Data, you'll need to monitor and adjust power levels in real time. Understood, Captain. Picard took a breath. This was it. A plan born of desperation, cooperation from historical enemies, and faith in 3 teenagers from other dimensions. Everything Starfleet stood for distilled into one impossible moment. All ships, he said, engage power transfer. Now. Energy flowed from 47 ships, Federation, Klingon, Romulan, through subspace, through normal space, converging on 3 points where teenage heroes stood as living conduits. The power hit them like a tidal wave. Gwen screamed. The energy was too much, too intense, burning through her enhanced nervous system like fire. But her spider sense guided her, showing her how to channel it, how to direct the flow into the dimensional web structure. She became a living transformer, taking raw power and converting it into the specific dimensional frequency the universe needed to heal. Peni felt SPR's systems overload and compensate, the mech suit's power core resonating with the incoming energy. The psychic link between her and the radioactive spider that powered SPR amplified, and suddenly she wasn't just channeling power. She was the power, a living circuit connecting ship systems to dimensional repair protocols. Hobie played his guitar, and the music became the flow itself. Each chord structured the incoming energy, gave it rhythm and purpose. His punk rock philosophy of creation through destruction found its ultimate expression. They were tearing down the old damaged reality and building a new one in the same instant. The dimensional web blazed with light, fractures sealed, not just closing but healing. The purple glow fading to healthy blue as space-time structure reinforced itself. The spiderweb pattern spread across thousands of kilometers, each strand growing stronger, more stable. On the Enterprise bridge, Data monitored the process with android precision. Dimensional coherence increasing, 73%, 81%, 92%. Power levels? Picard asked. Missy Stacy's biorhythms are approaching critical. Mr. Brown's neural activity is spiking beyond safe parameters. Ms. Parker, Data paused. Ms. Parker's psychic link with her machine is creating a feedback loop. The strain is, "Get them out of there," Beverly demanded. Not yet, Gwen's voice came over the comm, strained but determined. We're almost done. The web's almost complete. Just a few more seconds. The light intensified until the view screen had to filter it to prevent damage to human eyes. The dimensional web reached its final configuration, a perfect, beautiful structure that held the barriers between realities together with mathematical precision. And then it faded. Not gone, but invisible, woven into the fabric of space-time itself. The repairs were complete. Power drain has ceased, Data reported. All vessel systems returning to normal. Dimensional stability restored to baseline levels. The barrier between realities has been reinforced. The Spider People? Picard asked urgently. 3 figures floated in space, unconscious and drifting. Their bodies had been pushed beyond any reasonable limit, used as cosmic tools to repair reality itself. Beam them directly to sickbay, Picard ordered. Dr. Crusher, emergency protocols. The transporter caught them, and they materialized in sickbay where Beverly and her team were already waiting. The medical assessment took seconds. All 3 were alive, but barely. Their enhanced physiologies had burned through reserves that should have killed normal humans 10 times over. They need recovery time, Beverly reported to the bridge. Days, possibly weeks. But they'll live. Those incredible metabolisms of theirs are already beginning to heal the damage. Picard allowed himself to breathe. Inform all vessels that the crisis has been resolved. And, he paused, considering his words carefully, thank them for their cooperation. Today, old enemies became allies once more. Perhaps someday we'll do so without a crisis forcing our hand. On the view screen, the space where the dimensional web had blazed now looked normal. But everyone who'd witnessed it knew the truth. The universe had been broken and repaired. And 3 heroes from other dimensions had paid the price. 5 days later, Gwen Stacy woke up in sickbay with every muscle in her body screaming protest. The last thing she remembered was channeling enough energy to power a small star through her nervous system. The fact that she was alive to feel pain was actually a good sign. "Welcome back," Dr. Crusher said, appearing at her bedside with a medical tricorder. "You've been unconscious for 117 hours. Your friends woke up yesterday." Gwen tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. "Ow, everything hurts. Is that normal? For someone who served as a dimensional energy conduit, I have no frame of reference." Beverly helped her into a sitting position. "But your enhanced metabolism is healing the damage rapidly. Another day or two and you should be back to full capacity." "And the others?" "Hobie's in the gym, naturally. Refused to stay in bed the moment he could walk. Penny and SP Chaduarli are in engineering with Mr. LaForge. Apparently they bonded over the experience. And now they're comparing notes on human-machine interface technology." Gwen smiled despite the pain. "That sounds about right. Did the repairs hold?" "Perfectly. The dimensional barriers are stronger than they've been in recorded history. Whatever you three did, it worked." Beverly paused. "Captain Picard would like to see you when you're able. He has something to tell you. All three of you." An hour later, Gwen stood on the bridge with Penny and Hobie, all three of them still looking exhausted but alive. The senior staff was assembled, and Captain Picard stood before them with an expression that mixed respect, gratitude, and sadness. "Ms. Stacy, Ms. Parker, Mr. Brown," Picard began formally, "on behalf of the United Federation of Planets, Starfleet Command, and every being in this reality, I thank you. You've now saved this universe twice, once from dimensional parasites and once from the damage those parasites caused. The debt we owe you is incalculable." "We don't want payment," Gwen said quietly. "We just want to go home." Picard's expression shifted to profound regret. "That's what I need to tell you. When you repaired the dimensional barriers, you didn't just seal them, you reinforced them beyond anything we've seen before. The barriers are now so strong that dimensional travel has become effectively impossible. Even with Q's power, even with the most advanced technology imaginable, crossing dimensions would require more energy than this galaxy contains." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "You're saying we're stuck here," Penny said, her voice small. "Forever." "I'm saying the barriers you created to save this universe have trapped you within it." Picard's voice carried genuine anguish. "You sacrificed your ability to return home to ensure this reality survived. It was an impossible choice that you made without knowing the full consequences." Hobie laughed bitterly. "Course we did, because we're heroes in it. We see a problem, we fix it, and we don't think about the cost until it's too late. That's the whole bloody deal with great power and great responsibility." Gwen felt her spider sense reaching out, searching for danger, for threats, for some enemy she could fight. But there was nothing, just the cold reality that the universe she'd saved had become her prison. "There has to be a way," she said desperately. "Some technology, some science, something." "We've consulted with the best minds in the Federation," Data said gently, "including the Vulcan Science Academy, the Daystrom Institute, and even, with considerable reluctance, the Romulan Science Directorate through back channels. The consensus is unanimous. The dimensional barriers cannot be breached without destroying them entirely, which would allow the parasites to return." "So we're heroes and prisoners," Penny said, "saved by saving others. That's actually poetically terrible." Troy stepped forward, her empathic senses overwhelmed by their grief. "I'm so sorry. The loss you're feeling, being cut off from your homes, your families, your entire realities, it's a form of death. A death of possibility and connection. Please know that we understand that, and we're here to help you through it." "How?" Hobie demanded, his voice raw. "How do you help someone who's lost their entire universe? My New York, my band, my people fighting against Osborn's fascist regime, they're all still there, still fighting, and I can't get back to them. I'm here in this sanitized future where everything's solved by diplomacy and principles, and I'm useless." "You're not useless," Worf said, surprising everyone. The Klingon tactical officer stepped forward. "You fought with honor. You sacrificed for others. You demonstrated courage beyond any warrior I've known. Those qualities don't become useless just because the battlefield changed." "He's right," Picard said. "You're not prisoners. You're refugees. And the Federation has a long history of welcoming refugees and helping them build new lives. If you'll accept it, we'd like to offer you a place here. Citizenship, homes, purpose. Doing what? Gwen asked. We're spider people. We swing through cities, stop criminals, save people from burning buildings. What are we supposed to do in a universe where replicators have eliminated poverty, phasers have made street crime obsolete, and the biggest problems are diplomatic disagreements? You adapt, Guinan said, appearing from the turbolift with her characteristic perfect timing. She carried 3 cups of something warm and handed one to each spider person. You find new ways to be who you are. The universe changed around you. You change with it. Penny sipped the drink, hot chocolate, earth variety, with just the right amount of sweetness. I'm 14. I'm supposed to be in school, hanging out with my friends, working on SP Doctor in my aunt's garage. Instead, I'm a dimensional refugee in the 24th century, with no family, no school, no home. Then we'll create those things for you, Beverly said firmly. Starfleet Academy has educational programs for exceptional young people. You could study engineering, xenobiology, dimensional physics, anything you want. And as for family, she looked around at the crew. We take care of our own, always. As for purpose, Picard continued, the Federation is vast. We have colonies on the edge of explored space that face dangers every day. We have scientific missions that require protection from hostile forces. We have situations where enhanced abilities and quick thinking save lives. You wouldn't be spider people anymore. You'd be something new. But the core of who you are, that need to protect and help others, that would remain. Gwen looked at her companions. They'd fought together across dimensions, saved 2 realities, and now faced an impossible future as refugees in a universe that wasn't their own. But they were alive. They had each other. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. I have a question, she said. The Federation, does it have any unsolved problems? Any situations where 3 enhanced individuals with experience fighting impossible odds might be useful? Data tilted his head. There are approximately 247 ongoing situations across Federation space that could benefit from your particular skill sets, including several colonies experiencing attacks from unknown hostile forces, 3 separate dimensional instabilities that require monitoring, and an ongoing conflict in the Badlands region where Maquis resistance fighters oppose Cardassian occupation. Maquis? Hobie's interest sharpened. Resistance fighters opposing an occupying force? That sounds like something I could get behind. The Maquis situation is complicated, Picard warned. The Federation officially opposes their methods, even if we understand their motivations. They're fighting for their homes against Cardassian aggression that we failed to prevent through diplomacy. So they're freedom fighters the government won't support, Hobie said. Yeah, that's definitely my speed. Where do I sign up? Mr. Brown, I cannot officially endorse. I'm not asking for official endorsement. I'm asking where people are suffering and need help. Because that's what I do. That's what we all do. Gwen felt her spider sense pulse, not with danger, but with purpose. He's right. We can't go home. We can't be the heroes we were, but we can be new heroes for a new universe. If this reality needs protecting, if there are people who need help, then that's our responsibility now. The Federation could use more heroes, Picard said quietly. But I won't lie to you. This won't be easy. You'll face prejudice from some who fear your abilities. You'll be studied, monitored, questioned at every turn. The path forward is difficult. All the good paths are, Penny said. SP, Mach Doctor, and I learned that lesson a long time ago. We're refugees now. Okay, but we're also heroes, and heroes don't give up just because the universe changes around them. Picard nodded slowly. Then I have a proposal. Starfleet has a program for civilian specialists, individuals with unique skills who work alongside Starfleet personnel without formal military rank. You could operate under that framework, taking on missions suited to your abilities while maintaining your independence. We'd report to you? Gwen asked. You'd coordinate with Starfleet, Picard corrected, but you'd maintain autonomy in how you operate. Think of it as a partnership rather than a command structure. You help us with situations that require your unique perspectives and abilities. We provide transportation, resources, and support. And when Starfleet's prime directive says don't interfere, but we see people who need help, Hobie challenged. Picard met his gaze steadily. Then we'll have difficult conversations about principles and pragmatism. I won't lie, we'll disagree. Often, but I'd rather have you working with us, where dialogue is possible, than operating independently where we can't coordinate. A job offer from Captain Picard, Gwen said, a slight smile finally breaking through her grief. My universe's version of me would never believe this. Will you accept? Picard asked. The three spider people looked at each other. A silent conversation passed between them. Grief for what they'd lost, fear of an uncertain future, but also determination. They'd faced worse odds. They'd saved two realities. They could survive this too. On one condition, Gwen said, when we take missions, we operate as a team, all three of us. We didn't cross dimensions just to get split up. Agreed, Picard said immediately. And I want access to Federation databases, Peni added. Everything on dimensional physics, theoretical engineering, quantum mechanics. If there's even a 0.01% chance we can find a way home eventually, I want to research it. Done, Picard confirmed. And I want to visit those Maquis colonies, Hobie said. See the situation for myself. No Federation propaganda, no official oversight. Just me, seeing what's really happening. Picard hesitated but nodded. Arranged, though I'll ask that you don't make any commitments without discussing them with us first. No promises, Hobie said, but I'll hear you out. Then welcome to the 24th century, Picard said, extending his hand. Welcome to your new home. May it be the beginning of something remarkable. Gwen shook his hand, feeling the weight of that gesture. A handshake across dimensions, across realities, sealing a deal that would define the rest of their lives. Thank you, Captain, for everything, for protecting us, trusting us, giving us a chance when we had nowhere else to go. Thank you, Picard countered, for reminding us what heroism truly means, for showing us that courage and responsibility transcend dimensions. The Federation is stronger for having you here. The bridge crew applauded, a rare display of emotion that spoke to the profound respect they developed for these three impossible heroes. Even Worf joined in, his applause carrying the weight of warriors' respect. Q appeared in a flash of light, grinning broadly. Oh, this is delicious. Three-dimensional refugees becoming Federation heroes? The storytelling potential is magnificent. He looked at the spider people. You've passed another test, little spiders. Not the test I intended, but the one you needed. You've learned that home isn't just a place, it's a purpose. And you've found that purpose here. Q, Picard said wearily, if you have something constructive to add. Just this. Q's expression became almost sincere. You asked if there was a way home. There isn't. Not now, not for centuries. Possibly not ever. The barriers you created are too strong, and that's good. They need to be. But, he paused dramatically. If anyone could eventually find a way, it would be three teenage heroes who refuse to accept the impossible. So don't give up hope. Just don't let hope stop you from living. He vanished before anyone could respond. He's insufferable, Picard muttered. But he's not wrong, Gwen said. We'll keep looking for a way home. But we won't let that search define us. We'll build lives here. New lives. Better lives, maybe. Together, Peni added, SP Dar's mechanical hand gently touching Gwen's shoulder. Together, Hobie agreed, strumming a chord on his guitar that somehow sounded like hope and defiance mixed together. The multiverse threw us into a universe of starships and diplomacy, so we'll adapt, we'll learn, and we'll show this galaxy what spider people can do when they've got nothing to lose and everything to prove. Data stepped forward, curiosity bright in his golden eyes. I have been researching your universes through your descriptions. I would very much like to learn more about your experiences, your technologies, your philosophies. Perhaps we could arrange regular meetings? Nerd sessions with an android who wants to understand humanity? Peni grinned. I am absolutely in. And I'd like to spar with you, Worf said to Gwen. Your combat style is unorthodox but effective. I could learn from it. Deal, Gwen said. As long as you go easy on me. I just spent 5 days unconscious after channeling stellar levels of energy. I never go easy, Worf said, but his lips quirked in what might have been a Klingon smile. Gunan approached with more hot chocolate. You three are going to be fine. It won't be easy, and there will be days when the grief of losing your homes is overwhelming. But you'll survive, you'll adapt, and eventually you'll thrive. That's what heroes do. We're not heroes, Hobie objected. We're just people with powers who couldn't stand by and do nothing. That's the definition of a hero, Troy said gently. Not someone who's perfect or fearless, but someone who acts despite their fear, who helps despite the cost, who chooses compassion over convenience. Picard looked at his crew, at the three-dimensional refugees who'd become part of their strange extended family, and felt something he rarely allowed himself in command. Hope. Computer, begin personal log, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, stardate 478263. Today, 3 refugees from other dimensions officially joined the Federation as civilian specialists. They lost their homes, their families, their entire realities to save ours. In return, we've promised them purpose, community, and the chance to be heroes in a new universe. I believe it's a fair trade, though I suspect they got the worst end of the bargain. But if I've learned anything from exploring the galaxy, it's that the impossible happens more often than we expect. These 3 have already done the impossible twice. Perhaps someday they'll find a way home. Until then, they're ours to protect, guide, and learn from. Computer, end log. He looked at the 3 spider people, exhausted, grieving, but unbroken. Your first assignment won't begin for another week. That gives you time to rest, recover, and explore the Enterprise. Get to know the crew, the ship, your new reality. And when you're ready, we'll show you what the 24th century has to offer to 3 heroes from the multiverse. Gwen looked out the view screen at the stars. Different stars than her universe. Different constellations, different everything, but still beautiful, still full of possibility. Captain Picard, thanks for giving us a chance. We won't let you down. I know you won't, Ms. Stacy. Welcome aboard. The 3-dimensional refugees stood together on the bridge of the Enterprise, surrounded by new friends in a strange universe, facing an uncertain future with determination and hope. They'd lost everything to save everyone. But in losing everything, they'd found something new: purpose, community, and the chance to be heroes once more. The multiverse had torn them from their homes. Now this universe would become their home, not by choice, but by necessity. Not as Spider-Gwen, Spider-Punk, and Peni Parker of Earth, but as something new, something this universe had never seen before. The Federation's first-dimensional heroes, the Enterprise's newest crew members, 3 impossible people in an impossible situation, ready to face whatever came next, together. In the months that followed, the 3 spider people became legends across Federation space. They saved colonies from hostile forces, mediated conflicts that diplomacy couldn't resolve, and brought a new perspective to challenges that had stumped Starfleet for years. They were heroes without a home, refugees who became protectors, and living proof that courage transcends dimensional barriers. Gwen Stacy learned that leadership meant more than swinging into danger. It meant building consensus, understanding alien perspectives, and finding peaceful solutions when possible. She trained with Worf, studied with Data, and became a bridge between the Federation's ideals and the messy reality of galactic politics. Peni Parker revolutionized Federation engineering with insights from her universe's technology. She and Data formed an unlikely friendship, 2 beings who existed between categories, her as human-machine symbiote, him as android seeking humanity. Together, they pushed the boundaries of what was possible, always searching for the theoretical path home while building a life in this dimension. Hobie Brown found his calling among the colonies and resistance movements that the Federation couldn't officially support. He walked the line between Starfleet ally and independent agent, bringing punk rock rebellion to a universe that sometimes needed reminding that utopia required constant vigilance. He never stopped questioning authority, never stopped fighting for the oppressed, and never stopped being himself. They never found a way home. The dimensional barriers remained sealed, impenetrable, a permanent reminder of the sacrifice they'd made. But they found something else, a new home in a universe that needed them, a new purpose in protecting people who couldn't protect themselves, and a new family among the stars. Years later, when Starfleet historians would write about the dimensional crisis, they'd note that 3 teenagers from other realities saved the Federation twice, once from parasites that would have consumed existence, and once from the despair of believing that heroism required perfection. They proved that heroes could be flawed, afraid, and far from home, yet still make a difference. The multiverse had given them powers. Radiation and circumstance had made them spider people. But this universe, this strange and wonderful reality of starships and diplomatic missions and endless exploration, had given them something more, a place to belong. With great power came great responsibility. They'd learned that lesson in their original universes. Now, in a universe of phasers and warp drives and 1,000 alien species, they learned a new lesson. With great loss can come new purpose. And sometimes the greatest heroism is accepting that you can't go home, but choosing to make home wherever you are. The Enterprise continued its mission of exploration and discovery, now accompanied by three-dimensional anomalies who'd become family. And somewhere in the vast multiverse, in realities separated by barriers that could never be breached, three universes mourned the heroes they'd lost. But this universe, this strange, complex, beautiful universe of Star Trek, had gained three heroes who would never stop fighting, never stop protecting, and never stop believing that tomorrow could be better than today. Because that's what heroes do. Across dimensions, across realities, across the infinite complexity of existence, they choose hope. They choose responsibility. They choose to stand up when it would be easier to fall down. The dimensional crisis had ended, but the adventures of three spider people in the Star Trek universe, those were just beginning.